Okay.
I am.
Boom. Okay. Welcome to the AGO President's Retreat. Yeah, let's give it a hand. Give it a hand. Got some pretty heavy hitters in this room. I am going to pass along our session notes. So go ahead and take one, and you guys can use this as notes. You could follow along with it. The one bummer is that well, I'm gonna repent right now. I went to my church and I printed out this morning, and I used all the toner, and only got everything up until the last page. So we're missing one page, but it's okay. That's Sunday session. And then I have some pens here too. If you have pens, use your own. But if you do not have one, sick. We're gonna be out. Sick. Some nice ones. Boom, boom. Cool. Okay, so before we get started, we got to open up with prayer. So, Brandon, why don't you open us up, and then if you can close the door just for echo purposes.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the ability to have a President's Retreat like this. We're so incredibly grateful for the location, the openness of SDSU chapter or to host, but for all the many hours that have gone into putting this together. We thank you for safe travel to San Diego, and we ask for a very productive weekend. You ready to pray? Amen.
Amen. Amen. Awesome, guys. Cool. So what we're gonna do is, well, oops. Let's see if I can. There we go. Okay, so this year's theme. So I just kind of want to speak a little bit into the reason behind the President's Retreat. So this is actually the first President's Retreat we've done ever. I think. I think there may have been some President's Retreats that have been done in the past, but this is the first President's Retreat that we've done since AGO has implemented a staff. And the reason why we want to have this retreat is because, well, one, as all of you guys are coming into your president position for the fall and the spring, we want to give you guys tangible equipping. We also want to get centered as a group and as an organization, and we just think that there's so much value in getting all of our leaders together, rubbing shoulders, having camaraderie together, and doing that. Some of you guys are presidents here. Some of you guys are not. Some of you guys just are peeping your head in here, and that's super awesome because this is something that we just really see as a Kickstarter for really the year, and it's going to help AGO grow as a whole organization. That's ultimately what our goals are. So just so we can kind of give you guys an idea of what to expect for this weekend, we're going to be having 6 sessions, and these are the topics. Right after this, we're going to go into session 1, which is visionary leadership, and talk about some things that we're calling the AGO pillars. Session 2, we're going to talk about steering the ship, and then we're going to do some goal setting. One of the cool things we're going to do is we're going to go on a prayer walk, and we're going to try our best to really just contend with the Lord and get some goals for the year during that prayer walk, and we're going to do that at the beach. Tomorrow morning, Brandon's going to kick us off with spiritual leadership. It's going to be super cool. Skylar is going to share fraternity excellence, talking about logistics and how to run our organizations best. And then I'm going to talk about recruitment and retention, and then we'll finish off on Sunday with some application. We're also going to go to church together. So before we get started, I think it's really important for us to all get to know each other. So I know we've been rubbing shoulders for the past 24 hours, but I'd love to hear who you are, what's your name, what chapter, and why you joined AGO, but also why executive leadership or why presidency. And I would love to just hear that. But then I'd also love for you to share a little bit about where your chapter is at, members, morale, just really be honest, because this whole weekend really is designed for us to all get our heads together and talk about how we can help AGO grow, not only at our chapters, but all around. So this is a place for us to be open and honest about our chapter's situation. Joe, I'm going to start off with you because you're the virtual one here.
Sure thing, yeah. So, hey guys, my name's Joe Din Tai Fun Chang. I'm the president of our USC Pod chapter. And yeah, the reason why I decided to step up as president was because our chapter is kind of going through a transitionary period right now where a lot of our older standout guys are graduating. So I really thought I wanted to, take up this role to really help like mentor these younger guys to take over. And yeah, I guess with my chapter status, yeah, I would say we're doing pretty well right now. Like I think we're looking at about 20 to 25 strong, and I think I'm pretty excited for this upcoming rush. I feel like we'll do a really good job. Like with a lot of younger guys that are really motivated, so I'm really excited to see what's to come.
Awesome. Let's go counterclockwise. So we'll skip staff and then go with.
All right, I'm Max and Ruby Turner. I'm here from.
That's actually hilarious.
Yeah, it looks good. I'm coming from the Omega chapter in Wise, Virginia. So I want to be president. I wasn't really expecting to be until it happened. So I guess, kind of goes with where we're at as a chapter. So we had 5 guys going into this past year, 2 of which were studying abroad this past fall. So there's 3 of us on campus, one of which was our SGA president as well. So he was super busy. The other one was a nursing major, so he had clinicals and everything, was super busy. We just did not really, nobody really had the time or like put in the effort for us to really have a complete full rush in the fall. The other 2 guys got back in the spring. We didn't really either. So it was, we had 1 guy rush who was also graduating this past spring. So we had 4 out of 6 members graduating. So it was me and our president this last year left. He was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna step down. We're gonna have to fold. I was like, no, we're not. I was like, I'm making sure that doesn't happen. So that's kind of where we're at. Just really hoping to find some new, young, motivated, Christ-focused guys next year.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, bro.
Hey, I'm Zach Duke Bardwell. What's it called? Our chapter's going uphill right now. We're at 22 right now.
What chapter are you from?
Epsilon, or SDSU, and we started off really bad. Like when I first pledged, it was just me, 1 pledge bro, and we had 5 guys who were all, or 4 of them were graduating, and 1 of them went inactive. So it was really just me and my pledge bro, and what's called God did everything. We're trending uphill right now. The positives, numbers are good. We're getting better rapport with other ministries, like more partnerships. But the negative is guys are getting comfortable. Guys are getting a little bit more slack on their faith, more focused on the fraternity aspect of it, of like hanging out, doing things that they shouldn't have, making jokes they shouldn't have. But all of them are Christian. All of them are great. So that's my status.
Hello everyone. My name is Trent Spidey Divine. I'm over at our Zia chapter at CU Boulder. Things are on the up and up. Kind of similar to what Juke said, I only had 1 pledge bro, my pledge class, and kind of joined this group when we were a little bit smaller. And I just got to say, we have a good team. We have a really firm foundation over at Boulder, and we're at 15 going into the fall. And I have a lot of faith for what God is hopefully going to do for us this next pledge class. And overall status, good. Morale is not the highest in our chapter right now, honestly. But like I said, we have a very firm foundation. And our priorities of loving each other as brothers is very strong. So I'm not worried about it.
Okay, I'm next.
I'm Noah. I'm not a president, but I just got activated this semester, and I think our pledge has like doubled the size of our chapter Epsilon. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I joined AGO because I knew that like God wanted to work on some things like personally in me through it, and He's done that so far, and He's still doing a lot of work on like my character and just like areas of like confidence and stuff like that. Yeah, I would say like I've seen God work so much through this house and like through the people that live in it, and it just is almost like a Christian like hub on campus, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot about it.
Yeah, no, one chapter.
Thanks, man.
And just for you guys all know, so Noah and Zach here, we're hoping to obviously have a great time this weekend, but we're actually hoping to gather some content for our AGO national page, and we're actually hoping to create a recruiting video. And part of that is going to be getting some of you guys to share some testimonies, share why you joined AGO. We're going to use that content for hopefully the macro growth of AGO. So Zach and Noah here to shoot those videos.
Awesome. Well, I'm Matt. I'm from the Chi chapter at Liberty. So little small walk away. With Mateo, we're both at the Chi chapter. He's the president. I'm vice president. I joined AGO for the Christ aspect. Not many frats have that, and there's not many frats where you can grow in a brotherhood where you have the same faith. And so that was like the big thing for me. I didn't want to like. Obviously, I have friends that don't practice, but I needed to grow. We're all young and we're entering adulthood, so that was like the big thing for me. And then as far as leadership goes, I've always been kind of like a natural leader. In every club I did, I ended up becoming the president. So I've just like I've always enjoyed like leading others and getting to know people and helping them grow in whatever area they needed to. So that was like the big thing. And but as far as our chapter status, speaking for both of us, we've been growing, so which is great. This past year, we just initiated three guys. Yeah. We had 6 originally pledged, and 2 of those are going to come back next semester and pledge, to our knowledge. And so, but God's been really good. That's like the big thing for us is once I came in, I was pledge master last semester after only joining the prior semester. And my biggest thing was just like at our school, it's very difficult to get people just because of the connotation of fraternity. And so I did a lot of prayer, and a lot of my brothers did too, just for prosperity over our fraternity. And God definitely worked. A lot of our events that we did, there's huge turnouts, and we're definitely growing, and both of us are super excited for this next year. Like, it's gonna be great. So, yeah, definitely happy.
Hey everybody, my name is Mateo. Mateo Nona Reyes. So later why that is, but but yeah, I am actually from San Diego, so I basically just drove here just to like get to this thing. But yeah, I'm also at Liberty, and it is really interesting having opportunity on campus because even though we are a Christ-centered fraternity, we're on a campus of people that have a bunch of like basically Christians. That's essentially what the whole university is surrounded by. And the interesting part is that why do we need to have this fraternity on campus if there's already like so many places we can go to go for help in pursuing your relationship with God. And that's definitely something that I feel like our fraternity has, because even though we have a lot of people on our campus that are willing to help you, there's a certain brotherhood aspect that kind of missing from some of the things when it comes to maybe like, so if you're in a dorm, we have this thing called like small groups, but at the same time there are a couple of rules that come with that small group. There are a couple of rules that in order to just like be in that small group. And the thing about this fraternity is that we don't have that type, like those types of rules, and it's basically like a safe place for everybody. And that's something that that's basically one of the reasons why I'm really doing fraternity as well, is because you really get that strong connection with those guys, especially when you go through big eye and all that type of stuff. You grow very close to the people that you get initiated with. And that's something that I saw like the moment I got initiated. Like, wow, these guys are awesome. And yeah, ever since then, I just yeah, pretty much just wanted to like keep going. And then after 3 years, I ended up just like becoming president.
And he's been a really good vice president the last few years, so he's been killing it, definitely.
And treasurer, right? I think you felt like every
Yeah.
exam. Almost.
I am Zach Skipper Fox from Side Chapter at Westchester. Well, the status of our chapter is a runoff spot. So these past couple years, just slow decline. A lot of effort for not a lot of return on pledges. So we're at about 4 members. We just had another guy. He decided to graduate, so we thought we'd be at 5, but we went down to 4, and that's from 7. And so it's just been a constant, slow decline, and the pressure has sort of been centralized on a few people, one of whose is very exhausted, and will be taking a step back this semester because he's got to focus on school. And so it's just been a slow, gradual increase of that pressure. One of the things that drew me to AGO was that we don't really have we have a couple campus ministries on campus, but there's not that that safety net. I feel like that like brotherhood aspect. It's very even in the small groups, there's always that instance of, oh, you're in this small group, then you get moved to that small group, and so you're meeting new people, and so there's not really that safety net aspect. But one of the issues we've been running into is that there's this very strong fraternity sorority culture on campus, and so a lot of people who go to Crew, which is a major ministry on campus, they end up being like, oh, well, in the testimonies, they're like, oh, well, I spent this freshman year drinking and partying and everything, and then I left that life and I found Christ. And then when you go to them, you're like, hey, or even if you just go to another person, they have this backlash against the fraternity culture, and you ask them, hey, you want to join? And they say, well, I don't think I'm a fraternity person, or, oh, I left that, I don't want to go back. And you've got to communicate this whole thing throughout that, like, oh, we don't do that, we don't drink and do all this stuff. It's more, you got to really battle through that fraternity image. So I think it's the image issue. We have a very strong image issue on campus, and with the less members, just the outreach aspect is becoming harder. We hit Instagram pretty hard last 2 semesters, didn't get anybody in the fall, and then the spring we got some returns on some of those people, but just not a lot of people. So
So, as you guys can all hear, we're all coming from very different places, backgrounds, and the thing that I can tell you guys is that I'm really encouraged that we're all here, because our goal is we want every single AGO to thrive, and the 3 of us, we've seen almost everything. Like I wouldn't. I mean, I'd go as far to say is I personally have seen chapters get up to 15 members, not my own. I've seen chapters get that high. I've seen chapters get down to 2 members. And the thing that we know is that we believe that there's something special about AGO. We all are here because there's something special about AGO, but how can we really communicate that message to our campuses? How can we impact the lives of every single member or every single potential member? And how can we make sure that this lasts for generations to come? So that's what we're going to be talking about a lot. I'm realizing that my charger is not going to work, so I'm going to try to hopefully finish this presentation before my battery. I know it's just yeah. Do you mind like figuring troubleshooting that out really quick? Okay. Our first session here, guys, if you guys want to switch, go to your notes here, is we are going to be talking about visionary leadership. So, visionary leadership and how it pertains to scripture. So, I think one of the biggest things that we miss as presidents, as leaders of our organization, is that we can actually get so focused on what's going on in the present. Like that is so true, and that's a good thing. Like, I mean, you guys are supposed to be running your chapters, but at times we can lose sight of the big picture. And one of the biggest things that we're trying to drive for our presidents is that we want you to have a great understanding of what's going on presently. Here, I'll unplug this really cool. But then also, what was that thing? Oh no, I have an old one. Sorry, bro. It's just yeah. Anyways, I was yeah. We as presidents we have to have great understanding of what's going on currently in our chapters and managing our officers, our chapters, our people, our future people. We also need to have an understanding of what is going on for future generations and how are we establishing a culture that makes sure that we are not repeating the cycle. Proverbs 29:18 talks about without vision, people perish. And I think one of the biggest reasons why we are seeing this cycle over and over and over again is that there's actually a lack of understanding of the big picture vision. And when we lose that, we hit what I like to call the AGO cycle. I'll come back to that. But Judges 2:6-10, if we can open that scripture up really quickly. Actually, if someone opens it up, maybe I can figure out my charger.
You want me to send you cord? Is that your problem? Is it just doesn't read?
I don't know. It reaches. It just wasn't.
Oh, it just must have.
Yeah, maybe it just wasn't.
Just want my little green light to light up. Is that not? Is that just even? Is that just like a dead one? No. Okay. All good. Okay. Judges 2:6-10. Can someone read that for me?
After Joshua had dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to their own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance, at Timnath-Heres in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Dash. And the whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors. Another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel.
So that last verse there terrifies me, because we all know, well, we should know the story of all of this, right? You know, before Joshua and Caleb, there was this major patriarch figure of Moses who saw miracles, saw the pillars of fire, saw the splitting of the Red Sea, saw all these amazing things happening. But then you see that literally 2 generations later, they forgot everything. And actually, if you guys remember the story, the generation of Moses actually wasn't even allowed into the promised land because of their disgruntling. And even though they were led by Moses, it was the following generation of Joshua and Caleb that was raised up, and they were the ones that took over the promised land. But you can see that literally the generation immediately after them, they forgot everything that the Lord had done and all the things he'd done for Israel. Like, it's crazy, but this is something that is super common, not only in our fraternity world, but in the Christian world, because a lot of times, we'll see this raising up of a really strong, powerful, great leader or leadership group, and then they die, or they graduate, or they move on, and then you're left with like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Sound familiar? That's the AGO cycle. That's what I like to call the AGO cycle. And it's nothing, I mean, it's not immune or it's not solely for AGO, but the AGO cycle is a very, very, very real thing. And I think why we keep going into the cycle is because we actually don't understand about it and we don't know what we need to do to combat it. So that's what a lot of this retreat is going to be about is identifying where we are at in the cycle. How can we get to the part where we're thriving, but then how can we stay thriving? So when I joined AGO, I'm going to share a little bit about my story. I joined a chapter of 6 members. Like that's very similar to where a lot of us are at. And this was pre-COVID. So like it wasn't, it wasn't crazy different. Like there was actually, we probably should have been doing better. I was joining a chapter of 6 members, but had my pledge class not joined, we would have folded because half of those guys, one was going to study abroad, and then there's 2 younger guys that had their resignation letters printed out in their Google document because they could not take running this thing anymore. They were over it, they were tired of the disappointment, and they were going to quit. Our pledge class comes in, and as it always happens, we doubled the house. It was 6 guys, 6 pledge bros. We come in and we join. And throughout that time, that was a great. And this is my college years, and we go from 12 to at the time with including pledges, we were at 30 members by the time I was leaving. But then I leave, and this chapter that we poured our heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears, tabling, all that kind of stuff, within 2 years, right? I graduated in 2018. Within 2 years, we're back down to 5, and that's when Zach joins. Like, how did that happen? Now, obviously, there was a pandemic, so I'm not going to, say that had nothing to do with it. But you can kind of see that this is something that happens over and over and over again because it's the generation before, or it's usually a generation of people that see God work, but then we miss that in the handoff and we repeat the cycle. And I have come to this point where I believe it's because of a lack of vision. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. So our goal for this retreat and really for this session is we want to break the cycle of chapter growth and death. We want to see a sustained generational success, and we want AGO to thrive. We do this with visionary leadership or big picture leadership. And as Mark 2:22 talks about, it says, new wine requires new wineskins. So there's a lot of things that we probably have been doing at our chapters over the past generations. And the thing that I've realized is that with every new generation, we need to adapt and to take on new wineskins because the scripture talks about with new wine, if you put new wine into old wineskins, those wineskins are going to burst. That's always going to happen. And as a organization, we're constantly getting new wine. So we need to be on top of adapting our organization to where we are creating a space for new wineskins. I'm so nervous about this, my battery draining and dying. But I think we should be good. I think I can back do this actually. I'm at 57, but I have a 2013 Mac, and 57 might be 20, so really quickly.
Is it that outlet?
Yeah. Well, we'll troubleshoot it later, but okay.
Extension cord if you want it that you can plug in. Come on in, Turbo.
You're gonna be a goofball. Or you're gonna pay attention, bro.
I was just asking where the burgers
They're for the president's retreat. All right, you can have one, bro. I'm bummed. Okay. Love that kid. Okay. So one of the things that I just want to kind of present, and obviously you guys are a new generation of guys. You guys don't really understand the split between national and chapters and all this kind of stuff. There's some camaraderie and there's trust built between us as national and you guys as chapters. But one of the things I just wanted to just squash from the very beginning is that we're on your side. Like, as a national staff member, we're on your side. We're not trying to just break a bunch of, traditions and, you know, piss on your rules, like all that kind of stuff. We're not trying to be killjoys or anything like that. The three of us, as I mentioned before, we have all seen various levels of success at our own chapters. Each of us has served as president, and we've also seen the highs and the lows. So, one of the things I just want to get out there on the very front part is that we are here to help you succeed. That's the purpose of this retreat. If we are ever giving you guys advice, it's because it's coming from a place of learned experiences, both good and bad. Anything that we recommend is based on data and experience, and our goals are to help break the cycle. We're on your team. We're not against you guys. National is not this big bad wolf that's trying to, you know, make sure you guys aren't having any fun or anything like that. We are here to help you, but also we're here to help you focus on the big picture and make sure that we are walking that path towards Christ. Your guys' roles as presidents, but also leaders, is you guys are the ones that are supposed to set the tone for your chapters. Like that, I cannot emphasize enough how important that is, of you guys being the ones that are you're the fire starter for your chapters. Some of you guys may have guys in your chapter that are probably not as far along with the Lord, and that's actually okay. But you guys as leaders, you guys wouldn't be in this position if you guys were not already seen as fire starters or people that set the tone. And where you go, the chapter goes. So everything you guys do sets the tone. You guys are also the ones that steer the ship. Everything you guys do or how you manage your people is ultimately where the organization is going to go. You guys are also accountable for results. If something goes great, it's on you, it's on your team. If something goes wrong or something goes not so great, on you guys. Like, you guys have to know that that responsibility falls on you. But I say that because that is what you guys signed up for, and you were elected this position because of that. So don't be afraid of it, but know that we're going to hold you accountable. We may not hold the pledge master accountable for a poor rush, or we may not hold the sergeant at arms accountable for something. We're going to hold the president accountable, and that's how you guys need to know and take that stance of running your ship. And ultimately, it's also your goal to implement the macro vision of AGO. We want, again, AGO to success in all ways, and we're going to cast a macro vision of what we want this organization to be like, and we expect you guys to help us implement that. You have to kill complacency. Number one, I can tell you right now, reasons why chapters fail is because there's a hint of complacency that comes in and kills a chapter. I remember that when I finished up my presidency, I was about to graduate, I was about to get engaged, like I was checked out. I remembered we were sitting at 30 members, and I remembered that spring semester of my last year at school. I wasn't holding any exec positions. I felt that my time was done, but the chapter did not put their effort into rush. They did not put their effort into anything that they did, and we got no pledges, which at the time we were like, who cares? We have 30 members. None of us are graduating, or just a couple people are graduating. We're going to still be above 20 going into the next fall. But the problem was that little hint of complacency set off a culture of apathy for the following generations. And where we once stood as a very strong and healthy chapter, it was gone in a couple of years, literally gone in a couple of years. And one of my biggest regrets as an AGO leader was that I didn't do anything to stop that cycle. But it happens. Your role is also to help us break the cycle. I'm going to reiterate, we're on your team as national. So here's some of the things we're going to cover in this visionary leadership. There's going to be three main things that we want to focus on for today. The first one is we are wanting to teach you guys how to set the tone, what that means. We want to talk about our AGO pillars. And then in session 2, we're going to talk a little bit about steering the ship. Again, raising the bar for AGO leadership, keys to building a strong culture, understanding the pillars for AGO chapter success, and then understanding the big picture of AGO and identifying where your chapter is at within the cycle. Setting the tone. Again, this is going to be done a million times over, but you guys need to know that the president is a culture setter. You are a culture setter for your organization. If you are not stoked about AGO, if you are like not, you don't believe what's going on, you don't believe in the organization, all those things, everyone's going to follow. So you got to understand that you guys are a culture setter. So some of the things we're going to talk about right now are knowing how to dream big, how to be a servant leader, having strong convictions, learning how to empower others, and how to kill complacency. So the first thing is it is the president's job to dream big. So I will always remember when I was president, I had this idea for this thing called Ragio, which was an AGO party, an AGO themed party. You know, we had finally gotten to the point where we were more than 20 members. We were like, hey, let's figure out how to do something for fun. And my own personal testimony was, I will always remember move-in day as the day where every single person realized their freedom for college and decided that it was time for me to live a life of sin and partying. So how SCSU's move-in day is everyone from the dorm is gathered and they all go and walk through the Hefner Hall over there. And then they walk out and it's like 11 p.m. And I kid you not, it's literally like a feeding frenzy. Like if you ever picture the bears eating the salmon on the salmon run, it's literally all these freshmen, these little salmon, have nowhere to go. And it's literally just these bears picking them up. And literally the bears are these, you know, either other fraternities, other guys, other gals, swooping up every single person and taking them to their parties. And I remembered being the only person on my floor walking back by myself. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like every single person is going out and partying. Like I hate this. And you know, I like would meet up with everyone after on the floor, like, oh, how's your night? Da, da, da. And like this girl's like, yeah, I lost my virginity. Oh my God, da, da, da. And I'm like, I did cocaine. I'm like, what on earth? Are you serious? Like, and I will never forget. Like, that's when I realized I was not in Kansas anymore. Like I was at college and it was crazy. And my dream for the chapter was, hey, you know what? I would love to throw a party to give people another option, an option where they weren't going to get blitz drunk, an option where they weren't going to, get taken advantage of. I wanted to throw a Christian party, and that's where the idea of Ragio came up. And it was during the summer. I remember I was doing some traveling, and I was trying to sell my exec on this. And they're mostly introverted dudes. I'm actually incredibly introverted, but I was like, there was some vision there. Like I really wanted to do this. And I remembered people were like, dude, this is not going to work. It's not going to be great. I'm like, no, trust me. Like there's a vision here. And I'll never forget when we threw the party and we partnered with a bunch of campus organizations. We had over 100, 150 people showing up at this party. And the best part was that we got like 2 or 3 actives from it because they were like sober party. Like, oh my gosh, hey, this is like we brought in a root beer keg and we did a root beer keg stand with one of our guys. And this one guy was like, dude, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I just knew that I wanted to be a part of this after that. And then after, I was convincing and telling people the idea, like, hey, this is not a dumb idea. I personally took pride in when my pledge master was like, Drift, thanks for pushing that. That was a good idea. And I'm like, that's right. What I mean by that is you guys need to dream big, right? If you guys don't set like big dreams, unrealistic dreams, then you're just going to settle for what we've settled for the past decades. Like we need to dream big. And we're going to talk about setting goals later on today, but we need to have God-inspired goals. There's so many times in scripture where a character in the Bible goes away and gets inspiration from the Lord. I want us to go away and get inspiration from the Lord and use that and apply that to our chapters. By you guys setting big goals, you guys are going to mobilize faith, and you guys are going to set crazy initiatives, and people will believe that based off of your enthusiasm. Be intensely passionate about anything that you do. If, like, let's say you want to throw a river cruise, like for your banquet or something. Like, get excited about it now. Or, hey, I want to take my entire chapter. I want to go to Colorado. Like, get excited about it now, and like sell the vision for it. Or, hey, you know what, man? I think we can get 10 pledges. I think we can. And you may not get it, but if you do the activities that require getting 10 pledges, you're not going to be upset when you get 7 or when you get 8. But if you say, oh man, I only want 3, you ultimately sometimes get 2 or 1. If you dream big, like there's a saying where you shoot for the moon, but you're not going to be mad when you end up in the stars. As the president, you guys have to be that, and be people that mobilize the dream. It's one thing to just say we want to do something, but you better be the one on the front line pushing that dream. To go hand in hand with that, servant leadership. It is the job of the president to serve, to serve, to serve. I know there's a lot of what I talk about is how can we delegate, how can we empower others. That's all good. Like, and I want us to do that because I don't want us to feel that we are the solution to everything in AGO as the president. But I want you guys all to have the mindset of servant leadership. Christ came to serve, not be served. The presidents need to be the ones leading the charge and serving others. Lead with humility and understanding. You guys are going to mess up. Like, you guys are going to mess up. And I'll never forget when one of my presidents, he had messed up with his girlfriend, and he came and confessed the whole chapter. And we were like, yeah, I mean, that sucks. Like, that sucks that you messed up. But I'm so glad that you were honest, and I'm so glad that you brought this to the table. I'm so glad that you shared that you slept with your girlfriend. We're gonna be on you more, but I'm glad that you had the humility to come and confess to your brothers. Hey man, I had this idea for Regio and it totally flopped. It's okay to admit that you messed up. Or hey, I XYZ, right? Take massive ownership, and it's okay to be wrong. Have the mindset of be the first to arrive and the last to leave, especially when it comes to our big events and big initiatives. And again, be willing to sacrifice, accept fault, and be wrong. It's okay. It's totally okay. Like, you might, like, man, I used to get at it with one of my pledge masters. Like, and it was okay for me to have that healthy conflict with him. And there's times when I had, you know what? Hey, I was wrong. I was wrong. Hey, I overset my boundaries. You were elected for the position. You got to run it. Obviously, you still report to me, but it's okay to be wrong, guys. Strong convictions. Again, the president is a culture setter. If you do not have strong convictions, both in your personal life, but also for AGO, you're failing as a president. Like, you have to have belief in this organization. You must live a life of integrity and a life above reproach, and lead above reproach. One of the rules of the whole armor is like, hey, no girls in your room, and there's an open door policy at all times. And I like to believe that most guys are doing good things, but there was this or one of the things that Billy Graham was famously known for, like one of the champions of our faith, is that he would never be with a woman alone ever. He was meeting with Hillary Clinton at one point, and he was quoted saying like, "Hey, let's meet in public." She's like, "Why would you want to meet in public?" He's like, "Hey, I don't even want the thought of someone thinking that I'm, walking outside of integrity." So that's kind of the mindset that we need to have. One of the things we implemented in the house was we had an open door. Like, we were not allowed to lock the bathroom door. Like, it was just, hey, we know that things happen there. We were we had a rule where it was like a timer. It was 5 minutes. You were in and out. Like, that's kind of what it was. Like we had a policy where people can just open the door. You can be taking a poop and people can open the door back. What are you doing? Like, you know, like that was but like that was like one of the things that was just hilarious and it kept us on our toes. But like you have to be thinking like that when we're leading because guess what? When you are leading, you got people that look up to you. But one of the things, oh man, I'm trying to remember the thing. Everyone wants a leader to fall. I think it's a Spider-Man quote. It's like you live yeah. Yes, that's Batman. Sorry, some people want to watch the world burn. Um, yeah, people will root for you, but then they will be ready to turn on you as a villain. And so many like guys, there's so many pastors in the world that don't or they get caught with integrity, and their whole ministry topples under them. Think of Carl Lentz with Hillsong. Like Hillsong was this mega mega church and that doesn't mean like they still were able to mobilize a powerful worship movement but the senior leader is tied to controversy and then one of their pastors is openly caught in an affair you don't see Hillsong Church anymore like Hillsong Church does not exist anymore it barely exists and I would be refrained for even going to Hillsong Church because of the controversy that's tied to its leadership when you're a leader, your controversy is tied to you into your leadership. So as a leader, you have to be so far above reproach to where people aren't even questioning. And obviously we make mistakes. We do. And when we accept those with humility, we can win some, you know, we can win some things back. But you need to take that so seriously. And again, with in terms of convictions, we need to lead with like organization and professionalism. Like that's one of the things that I think about. There was man, it might have been Ronald Reagan, but or someone, but he talked about how he would never be caught without not wearing a suit and tie. Like he valued his perception and leadership and treating people with respect because when you were dressed up, you anyone you met commanded respect. And that was one of the ways that he led. So one of the things that I think we've really missed in AGO, and again, we're coming out of a hey, we were Zoom meeting, we were at sweatpants, like all these things. One of the things that we have missed over the past couple of years is we've really missed that professionalism. And that's actually one of the things that, weirdly enough, attracts people to AGO. I have not, admittedly, I have not worn a suit and tie in years. Like, and I only do it when I come to AGO events or weddings. But there was something about going to chapter meeting, and like I had to dress up nice. Like I had to dress up, and then ultimately I got a job in sales, and that my team leader he told me to dress up every single day. And I'm like, dude, why do I have to dress up? He's like, because when you feel and look and act professional, you're going to look and act professional. And when people meet with you, they're going to be like, oh, this guy figures it out. And I was a 21-year-old in a sales job where I was talking to a bunch of 40, 50-year-olds. But when I came up and I was dressed up nice, people were like, oh, this guy's serious. So as a president, and Skylar's going to touch on this more in his fraternity excellence session, but I want to touch on as the president, have a dress code, have agendas, stick to your agendas, and prioritize timeliness. Because I've seen this before, and when you let one person show up 5 minutes late, the next week, two people show up 5 minutes late. The next week, everyone starts 5 minutes late, and people start missing, and then quickly you realize that you do not have a meeting anymore. And then it becomes so much harder to get everyone back on schedule. So the beautiful thing is that when we're starting our culture here in the next semester, so we can set the tone really quickly. Hey, this starts at this time, dress up, and this is what it is. Like, and you can, progress a little bit. You can be like, oh, hey, jeans, or hey, something at state we have themed meetings. So we're like, oh hey, Christmas in Hawaii, let's all wear board shorts and then tops. Like that was like a way to make it fun. Or you can go polos or whatever if you have polos. But there's something about professionalism. And then another thing too is you guys all have really, really cool honor or traditions and rules. Let's honor them. Like, and if there's some that we need to kill off, we need to kill them off. But there's some really cool traditions that you guys may think are stupid, but when a pledge comes in, they're like, okay, that was kind of cool. Like, some people are like, oh man, like they made me like, I don't know, they made me spin around 5 times and sing. I thought that was hilarious. Or they made me do the match test and I burned my finger a little bit. I thought that was cool. And I know the Greek alphabet now. Like, it's just weird stuff like that. But honor those rules and traditions. Another thing is empowering others. So as presidents, it can be easy for us to take on everything and do everything. I remember, I didn't have to do that, which was really nice. But I remember talking and coaching some of our other presidents in previous years, and he was like constantly tired. He's like, "Yeah, man, my name's on the rush flyer. I planned all the events, and no one else is going to do it, so I had to do it." And I'm like, "That's not true, man. Like, that's not true at all. Like, you just didn't empower and equip better." And obviously, there are times when we need to step in and we do need to do more. And that's the thing about the president, is that our job title might not be very specific, like run a pledge program or plan events, but we are the ones that drive everything forward, and we're the ones that fill in when people mess up. But if we just have that mindset of doing everything, we actually fail to equip the next generation. So one of the things that is really, really, really important is learning how to mobilize your officers. So and your chairman and all those things. Um, so the thing that you need to do as a president, and it's a leadership practice, and we can't really go too in depth into it, but you have to be the visionary, and you have to let your officers be the implementers. So there's this principle called the 80-20 principle, and it's called the Pareto principle. But it's a very, 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 very popular thing in the business world. And it's where the president or the leader communicates the vision, the first 20%. The first 20% is, sorry, the principle is the 80-20 principle is 20% of efforts equal 80% of the results, and then vice versa, the 80-20. The president is the one that should be casting the vision and give their officers just enough to where they get 80% right and where they're looking for stuff. But you empower them to do the remaining 20% and perfect it and make it their own. So one of those things that you guys need to do is be thinking in how can I mobilize my officer? How can I cast the vision? And really the vision's pretty simple. It's like, hey, Pledge Master, we're shooting for 10. We're shooting for 10. We're going to do it. Okay, how do we do it? We do X, Y, Z, but you need to champion this, and we need to do this, and I'm here to help you, but we want to shoot it forward. That's kind of idea. Or, hey, VP, we need to do a banquet. We haven't done banquets in years. Like, let's do a banquet this fall. How? We don't have money. Let's figure it out. Let's budget better. Boom, boom, boom. But you want to mobilize your officers. Another thing too is as we grow, one of the big problems actually is people get checked out. And that's just the reality of what this organization is, and that's the reality of fraternities. But we're so different, and we need to remind ourselves that we're here for a greater purpose and a greater vision. And within our motto is being disciple makers. Those people that are checking out, we need to rally them in. And there's some ways we can do that. Two things that I've really highlighted, or three things I've really highlighted, is we're really wanting to push this Ironman program for the following year. Ironman, well, everyone kind of gets it. It's our accountability groups that we're pushing. So we really want people to get involved in Ironman because that deep relationship and accountability relationship is incredibly important. And that's something that AGO can do better than any organization. I'm confident in that. So we really want to push that. We really want to push our Big Bro Bible studies. So again, implementing discipleship into our pledge program. So every big bro has a little bro, and we take them through a 3-week study where we touch on the basics of Christianity. We want to encourage leadership outside of AGO. So, hey, if someone is not the pledge master, but they're like a super solid leader, hey man, go lead at your local church. Like, please be a blessing. Like, we need you. And what that does is that actually boosts the reputation of AGO. Like, if AGO is just this group that shows up every rush period to crew and just steals all the men, you're going to create a horrible reputation. But if you have two guys within crew that are leading men's Bible studies and are openly like advocates for AGO, those leaders are going to take notice and be like, dude, what's going on in AGO that's developing men so greatly? Well, it's XYZ. We do this, we do this. It's a pretty intense discipleship, pledgeship program. It really gets people going and we all live together. The leaders are going to be like, dude, we don't even have the capacity to do that and to meet with people every day. We can maybe meet with one person a week. Like, can you like champion these dudes? And it's a great way to really boost that brand of AGO, but then also chair positions. And we really want to focus on empowering our new members. So those new members, Noah, getting involved really quickly and seeing the vision of AGO. I believe finally, I'm going to wrap up here with killing complacency. So nothing kills a chapter faster than complacency. And complacency is just passivity. And we need to be ones that kill that quickly. We need to, like, it's a weed, guys. It's totally a weed. Judges 7, it talks about this story of Gideon, one of the judges, one of the people that God had put into power to lead the people of Israel. And there were enemies in the land, and there was 100,000 of the Philistines, the Jebusites, the Midianites, the whatever, all those Hittites, like all of them in this valley. And Gideon and the Israelites only had 10,000 people. So 10,000, 100,000, very big disadvantage. What happens? God tells Gideon, hey, cut your forces. Actually, we're going to go in with less. And ultimately, he ends up with 3,000 people against the 100,000 army. Then you guys know the story. They all go to sleep. They wake up the next day. The 100,000 people wiped each other out. So it was one of those situations where God told Gideon, hey, we need the people that are bought in, and we're better off with less people that are committed than a bunch of people that are not committed. And presidents need to whittle down the army, and you need to have the hard conversations, and you need to set that standard high. Now, obviously, there's times when we balance standards and letting people in, but when you're trying to grow and set culture, you need to have high standards. You need to be willing to whittle down the army. And then another thing too is good presidents build contingencies. So this is something that's a relatively new thing, but there's been so many situations that I've seen where we put all of our eggs in a couple of these baskets in AGO, but when something goes wrong, we are just like, we don't know what to do. We're like, crap, we got one pledge. Okay, we're just gonna go with it. And I'm like, okay, hey, that's fine. That's fine. But what happens if that pledge drops 2 weeks in? It's October. What are we gonna do for the rest of the year? Like, and then you sit in these pledge meetings, or you sit in these chapter meetings, and you're eating pizza together, and we're like, let's open up the Bible. Cool. We got an event this weekend. Cool. And you guys all good? Cool, we're out. And it's like, what on earth are we doing? And the thing that you guys all got to know about AGO is that, yes, we have things for actives, but we are an organization that is dependent upon pledges. And we need to always have pledges because our structure is built upon raising up the next generation every single semester. So one of the things that we'll need to workshop one-on-one is we need to have contingencies for when things go wrong. So, hey, we busted our butt off for 2.5 weeks, and we got 3 guys that kind of want to join. Okay, what are we gonna do? We have to be flexible. Okay, let's figure out how we can add another week of this. How can we solidify those yeses? Oh, hey, do all these things, right? You know, when I first took this job, as Zach had mentioned, there was 5 guys at this chapter, my home chapter, and 4 of them were graduating, and the other one was basically checked out. And we had 2 weeks, an event every single day for 14 days. 14 days. And then our final event is our bonfire where we all share our testimonies and we all go kumbaya and everyone's like, I want to join AGO. No one showed up to that. Like no one showed up to that. We had one guy who lived in the house as a boarder who said, maybe I'll come. And he flaked on us. And I'm like, dude, I just took this job. I just quit one of my jobs to do this. And my chapter's about to die. Like, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, guys, what's up? And I'll never forget, we were sitting around that bonfire and you know, they're kind of goofing around, but I like start asking the guys, I'm like, guys, what's your favorite memories about AGO? And they're like, you know, this, like getting really fired up. And I'm like, so are we done? And they're like, no, we can't be done. And I'm like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna add 2 more weeks. We're gonna do it. And I'm like, okay, who are we gonna talk to? We don't know. And I'm like, okay, we'll figure it out. And I will never forget because it was that night where my job was on the line. I logged on to the San Diego State Instagram page and I followed 250 people. And one of those people happened to be Zach. And I DM'd him saying, hey, we have a bonfire next week. When we didn't really have a bonfire planned, we have a bonfire next week. And that's how we got a couple more people. And ultimately, it was those two guys that activated, that set off this whole generation of the San Diego State chapter that has 22 members. And that's all in 1 year, 1.5 years. Like it's that possible. It's crazy. But that was a contingency plan that we had built in. And we need to have those contingency plans built in because we need to hit our goals. Like, and it's, you know, it's not a bad thing when things go wrong. Is how can we adjust it? The second half adjustments in football terms. And then also for Big I. Our last Big I for San Diego State went a little bit unplanned. We cut it a day early and we had someone leave halfway through and we're like, what on earth do we do? We need to be thinking about contingencies in all of these areas and how things can go wrong, or actually when things go wrong, and communicate those things with our regional advisors. Okay. So this is kind of just this first session here. Do you guys have any questions? I'd love to kind of talk this through, and then we're going to go into the AGO pillars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
Matt.
So the biggest thing for us is like scheduling. Like a lot of our guys, and that definitely comes with like setting the standard, like that we're all here, but they have issues with time.
Okay.
And so like whenever we're deciding like events and stuff, it's like, oh, I can't be here. Like there's one guy who I swear has like the most packed schedule on planet Earth.
Okay.
And so that's like our one thing that I'm trying to think of ways around, sort of, is, you know, having like weekly meetings is very important. I think one of the ways that we're gonna try to do it is like kind of like mix it with a cookout, so that people do want to come. You know, like it's not like something yet. Like we're gonna kind of kill two birds with one stone. People like want to come, and then we're gonna, you know, talk about what needs to happen in the meeting, sort of. So what's your advice for that?
Yeah, I'll answer that question, but can we figure out a way to get my charger? Thanks, bro. So philosophically, so let me ask a question for you guys. So you guys are all in school. What's the first week of school typically with your classes? Syllabus week, right? So you got syllabus week. On syllabus week, you get your whole breakdown of your whole semester with this specific class. Typically, there's a couple of things on the syllabus, a few things. One of which is you got due dates for homework, you got your midterms, you got your final, and then you got your big picture thing of material. Now, one of the things that I can tell you right now is that if you know that you have a midterm on October 10th, you're not going to miss it. Like, or if you miss it, you're really bad at time management. The thing that I can tell you right now is that with AGO, there's no such thing as being too busy. That's not a high enough priority for you. Yeah. And let's just call it for what it is, guys. Like, and you're gonna run into that for every single thing in your life. If you guys don't know this, like I work for my church as well. If someone is consistently missing a meeting or being late to a meeting, it's more often not a character and a priorities issue. So there's a couple things that we can do to mitigate this in terms of getting people to show up to events. The first thing is we got to be more organized, and we have to have a syllabus week type of thing. And Skylar's going to talk more into that. But if you set guys, when you pick your classes, it's pretty self-explanatory. You have Tuesday, Thursday, and there's another one back here. Maybe we gotta, I don't, we just gotta figure that out. You know, thanks, Zach.
I got you.
Like, you're not gonna miss your Tuesday, Thursday class. Like or if you do miss it, it's because you don't value the class. Like there's classes I skipped back in college, I get it, but it's because the value wasn't there. So there's that blend of, you guys need to be very clear in setting your time well in advance, syllabus week. And like actually most of us, oh thank God, thank you. I was sweating a little bit. But if you guys set your time well in advance, you guys pick your classes the semester prior, right? For your following year, we need to be so much better planned as an organization. So that way we're not calling audibles. Like we need to have a game plan pre-semester. And if we need to change it, we change it, but you get things on the calendar early on. And if people are missing it consistently, AGO is not a priority. That's just the reality of what it is, guys. If people are not showing up to chapter meeting, it's because it's not a priority. But then on the flip side, it's probably because there's not a lot of value attached to those meetings. So yeah, I mean, the big things, guys, is chapter meeting has to be of value to our people. And if it's just a meeting where you guys are eating in and out, shooting shop, and not taking it seriously, of course people are going to miss it. Of course people are going to dodge it. Of course people are going to show up late. But that's like the bread and butter of our organization. If people are not showing to Big I, it's like, okay, dude, like, do you really care about this thing? And that's where maybe a conversation needs to be had of, do you want to be a part of this or not? Or especially if you're an executive officer, you're not showing up, dude, why, like the Bible says, let your yeses be yes and your no's be no. Why are you saying yes to something you can't clearly do? Why are you saying yes to this fraternity if you can't clearly show up to it or serve back into it? If you need to take a pause, you need to take a pause. And there's times for that. But you guys need to set the standard so early on, communicate it in advance, and make people fit into it. Like our chapter meetings, like, and again, we have to kill the culture of casualness from COVID. Like that really was something that happened. But for when I was in it, there was like, if you didn't show up, like it was a serious like, what's going on, bro? Like, are you good? Like, hey, if you're not showing up, like we were doing our brotherhood, we were doing our brotherhood circle at 7 p.m. every single day. If you were late, you're getting pinked. Like it was like, we were very serious about it. But that became the culture. People showed up early because they knew that they didn't want to get pinked. Like that's getting smacked in the stomach, if you guys don't know what that is. Not saying you guys should do that. Not saying you guys should do that. But like they valued this. And also too, as officers, how often you guys get pissed off when you put all this effort into this event and then people don't show up? Like that sucks. Your guys' events as chapter presidents is you guys are kind of owning the chapter meeting. And when people don't show up to your chapter meeting, that's a pretty big miss. And we're going to talk more about very like specifics on how to add value to those things. But like it's a big one. So does that answer your question? Hopefully.
Yeah, it was like what they just saying, like, how y'all kind of set up those meetings just to, like you're saying, add value, but I guess we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more, and we can obviously have some side conversations. But the biggest thing about getting people to your events is you need to communicate so early on. You need to have consistency with it. Like again, you should treat AGO as your class, right? Our chapter meeting is our lecture. Like if you miss lecture, like what's going on? Like and we've traditionally speaking have always had meetings on Monday nights. However, we realized that was a tradition that was more of a UCLA thing and not a everything thing. UCLA doesn't have night classes. So they were always able to have their chapter meeting, but at places like San Diego State or Colorado, we were running into, hey, I have an engineering class that has one course a year. If I don't take it, I'm going to not graduate. And we were like, dude, but you're our pledge master. Sorry. It's like, come on. So that's why for some of us, we've made that transition to having Sunday night meetings. But again, it becomes a priorities thing. Oh, hey, I have my church youth group at Sunday night. Hey man, love that you're doing that, but you're a part of AGO. You got to make a decision at some point, right? Or hey, man, I'm leading drums. Hey, dude, I love that you can play the drums for your worship team, but make a decision here. Like you're going to serve AGO, and obviously we're not trying to pin it against each other. And one of the cool things is by having Sunday night meetings, you're not conflicting with school. The only thing you might conflict with is a personal work job. Hopefully, you get Sunday nights off. But you're not going to conflict with school, and you're not going to conflict with other clubs on campus most of the time. So that's one of those things. So any questions or follow up things on that? Anything specific to visionary leadership?
So how would you set the, the tone if you don't have a house? You know, you talked about how like
Yeah,
like
totally.
you have this group and you're always together with everybody every day, but you don't have a house, so you're still seeing each other every couple times a week, but it's not
Yeah.
an everyday thing.
Yeah, totally. And I'll be the first to say that not having a chapter house is a disadvantage. However, I've seen it on both sides where people put too much emphasis on the fact that they have a chapter house, and it's just a dead fraternity inside of it. And I will tell you right now that there is a very, very high value for all of us to have chapter houses and shared living spaces, but it's not the thing that sets culture. So you set culture. It's it's the brotherhood of AGO first and foremost. It's not a bunch of guys that wear these cool sweatshirts together and live in a house. Like it's AGO that bonds us. Um, the thing that I would say is there needs to be consistency with meeting together. So again, Skylar's going to talk about this. Uh, our fraternity thrives when we operate like Acts 2:42, that scripture, when we are the fellowship of believers. And one of the things in that is that they continue to meet together in the temple courts. So we don't have temple courts, but they continue to meet together. That's a principle that's really, really important. So as you're early on in this thing, you want to continue to meet together. And a really big emphasis is how can we get a place where we have shared living. I'll talk about that. So, so that help a little bit. We're bonded by AGO guys, not bonded by walls that we live in. Walls that we live in is amazing, and it totally is great. Not dissing that, but if we don't have a strong cultural identity as a fraternity, we're just a house with brothers that want cheap rent. And I've had this conversation with people where that's actually worse because they're like, yeah, I joined AGO because I got cheap rent. And I'm like, so what I'm hearing is that you're just here because you want to live here. You actually don't want to show up to any of the events at all. Yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, great. Why are you a leader? Like these are conversations that I have, guys. So yes, the houses are great, but there's a flip side to that too. So okay, so this next section we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the pillars of AGO. And this goes into what we're talking about, but I'm not gonna lie, guys. I drew a pretty cool picture that we're gonna look at. But so if you think of pillars, right? Pillars are things that hold a structure up, right? So through our time in AGO, through our time coaching you guys, through seeing the highs, the lows, and all that stuff. Also, is it like pretty hot in here? Can we open up a window? Or maybe get that thing moving somewhat faster? Okay. Oh, beautiful. Pillars. Pillars are things that keep a structure up. Like my wife and I, we also renovate houses. Like one of the first things that I learned is that there's this thing called a load-bearing wall. And what that means is that if you knock that wall out, your whole structure is going to fall apart. Like it's all going to fall apart. That's what AGO pillars are. If this thing is not present in your organization, the structure is going to fall apart or it's going to be very close to falling apart. So I'm going to present to you guys the AGO pillars and really cool drawings behind them. But these pillars directly correlate to the health and the success of your chapter. If one is non-existent, your chapter is likely failing. If one is struggling, it could be an area to focus on as the president. Okay. When all pillars are functioning well, you can expect success and growth. That is unquestioned. If you are hitting it hard on these 3 pillars, you guys are going to do just fine for a long period of time. So, what are the AGO pillars? The first one is our identity as a fraternity. We are Alpha, Gamma, Omega, a Greek social organization. We must be a fraternity. If we are operating any differently, we will not survive. So that's number one. We need to double down on the fact that we're a fraternity. I understand that that may have some negative connotations. We need to be the ones that break those connotations, and we can actually be the leaders in that. We work closely and we consult with another Christian fraternity in the U.S. And one of the things that blew me away was that they were operating so well as a Christian fraternity that universities were begging them to start locations at their university because their reputation brought positive impact to fraternities. What are fraternities known for? They're known for Animal House. They're known for Neighbors. They're known like all those movies, right? But what if there was a fraternity that had such a great reputation that not only were people driven to joining it, but universities were begging you to go there because if they can say that there's an AGO on this campus, the university's like, oh man, no. AGO is the poster child. Like, no, they're great. They honor what this organization represents. Picture with me. Like that's the goal. That's the vision. We may not be there yet, but that's the goal. That's the vision. We need to be fraternities. The second pillar is spiritual growth. If we lose that gamma in our life, the God in the center, the Christ in the center, we literally have no purpose of existing. In fact, the fact that we are a Christian fraternity, it may deter people, which is fine, but there are people that will literally join AGO solely because we're a Christian fraternity. And if we just have Christian fraternity as our banner, but we don't act and operate like it, we're gonna fall. And that's actually a lot of the things that cause AGOs to go through the cycle. You know, if we're not operating like Christ, God is going to prune you hard and deservingly. God will not let something live that is dishonoring to his name. He won't. And we need to be a potent organization. Matthew 5:16. We are the salt of the earth. If we lose our saltiness, chuck it, step on it, it's dead. If we do not remain Christ-centered, if it just becomes a branding thing, that's a pillar. The third one, and I'm realizing this, we probably should have spiritual development and new member growth, but whatever. If we're not getting new members, we're also not going to thrive. That's incredibly important. Fraternity identity. So, have any of you guys had struggles convincing others to join? Yeah. Hey, want to join AGO? What's AGO? Oh, why would I join AGO? Like, I got crew. Or like, yeah, I knew you, bro. I knew you'd say it. Yeah, saying that. Zach called in the big dogs. Was like, hey, bro, Saint's thinking about dropping. I'm like, I got you. Don't worry.
I don't even think about joining the first time, right? Like we had to get.
I had to think about it for a while.
Yeah. Got you McDonald's. Yeah, Kowalski and.
So guys, there are a million Christian clubs out there. There's a million churches out there. There, in this world, are 2 Christian fraternities, and they're not at every campus. We need to be a fraternity. Like that sets us apart from the other organizations. We're not the same. Like we're not the same. So One of the reasons is a lack of fraternity identity. Joe, you still there, bro? I'm just looking at you. Sick. I'm like, he's in there. AGO must remain a fraternity. Now, guys, I remember thinking this like when I was a president. It was like, man, like what if we just like got rid of all of our requirements? Like, what if we just let everyone join? Like, hey, what if we had girls join? Like, what if we just grew this thing super great and all of these things, right? And well, what I realize is that when we lose our uniqueness, or we lose our value. And the thing that is so clear about what we have in AGO is that we are so unique and we serve a population that doesn't want these other things, like, or they're looking for something more. And we are not a campus ministry. Like, I want to grill that in your guys' head right now. We are not Crew. If we try to be like Crew, they're going to destroy us. Like, they are such a clear-cut organization that has been around for years and has hundreds, if not thousands, of staff members that are trained in ministry training to lead Bible studies. I love Bible studies, but you guys are 18 to 22-year-olds, full-time students, and some of you guys have jobs. It's not your job to build the most rock-solid Bible study. It's your job to be a part of a fraternity and be bros and run your pledge process. Like, that is what we are designed to do. We are not a church. We're not a church. Like, some of the things I like have told some of our chaplains is like, guys, you don't know anything. Like, stop trying to give this crazy Bible study and make these claims about the Greek that you don't know. Like, you are not a pastor. Not yet. You might be. You might be a great something in the future. But we need to stop thinking that we're a church. And a very, very big core identity of us is that we're not a church. So we should be a part of a church. There's some people within AGO that just don't think it's a discipline to go to church or be a part of a body. We need to weed that out. Like, we need to make men actively involved in the local church, and we need to kill that whole, oh no, me and God got something. Like, me and God, oh, I got my bros. That is so not biblical, guys. Like, you guys need to be rooted in a body of Christ. You don't have to be in full agreement of everything, but there is a biblical principle of striving for unity, Ephesians 4. And being a part and under a pastoral covering or a shepherd. We're not a service ministry. One of the things that I see this happen in AGO generations. We grow and we're no longer all focused on recruitment and all these things, and then we start being like, oh yeah, you know what, we can let's do evangelism every single Thursday. Great thing, right? Or hey, let's do worship nights every Friday. Let's do Jesus burgers all the time. Let's all go to the soup kitchen every Saturday morning and serve the homeless. All those things, right? All of those things are good. Like, those are super good things and they're super great initiatives. To go back to your calendaring question and your operations question, and again, this is from my own personal experience. So my second year into AGO, again, we'd finally grown. We had this really great chaplain who was like, hey, we gotta just be more than just pouring into ourselves. We're like, that's a great idea. We should do Jesus burgers. I've seen this thing at our Santa Barbara chapter, and I've seen this thing at this church in Santa Barbara called Jesus Burgers. Let's pass out hamburgers to the drunk people on the streets and share the gospel. Fire. Let's do it. Awesome. Week one, we did a Thursday night. We did a worship night. It was so great. Like, guys, it was amazing. We had like 70 people come through. We had people in our house. Like, it was great. Like, it was a super cool idea. And everyone showed up. Like, we were all about it. We were like, that was awesome. Let's do it again next week. Cool. So we do it again next week. And then there's a couple guys that are like, hey man, I've got a final I got to study for. I'll come. I won't be there for the pre-prayer, but I'll be there later. Cool. No problem, dude. Everyone goes around. We had maybe 50 people. It was still a really cool event. All this stuff. Week 3, okay, hey, you know what? I really gotta, hey, I'm gonna not come today. No problem, man. All good. And then you fast forward literally a month later, you got a chaplain who had a great idea, is disgruntled because he's putting on something that no one is showing up to, and we're doing it over and over and over again. And it's like he's pissed off because the HEO guys are not showing up and doing this thing that we all used to care about. Or hey, we're or even so, they'll say things like, "Do you not care about sharing the gospel?" Like that's kind of pointed. Like that's not fair to say to anyone. The reality is, guys, is that we are not equipped to be any of these things. Like we are equipped and trained to be a fraternity. If we stray from our core identity as a fraternity, we are faking it. Um, I don't know if I have it in here, but um, the scripture talks about the unique body parts of the body of Christ. Got some feet, got some mouths, got some shoulders, got some heads. I think AGO, I don't know. We're the hands. I don't know. No, we're not the hands. That's service. I don't know. We're the kneecaps. I don't know. Actually, we're the Adam's apple. We're that. If we keep trying to be the elbow, we keep trying to be like crew, we keep trying to be like, you know, uh, Red Rocks worship. We try to be Maverick City. If we try to do these things, we're gonna get mad because we can't do it. But the reality is, it's not what we were created to be. Like, and as weird as I think it is, AGO has been around for almost 100 years, guys. Like, can you guys fathom that? Like, 100 years. We were before Campus Crusade. We were before Billy Graham. We were before InterVarsity. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, that does not make sense that we've been around longer than those organizations. Like we've been around longer than most of these megachurches. Like, dude, we got age on Hillsong. Like, we got age on Maverick City Music. Like, we've got like things. And I love AGO to death. But sometimes I look at our longevity, I'm like, man, why haven't we gotten to the prominence of some of these organizations? And I think it's because we stopped diving into the fact that we're a fraternity. Like, we get distracted and we try to be these other organizations. I'm not saying we shouldn't do these things. We absolutely should do a Jesus Burgers. We absolutely should do worship nights. We absolutely should do Bible studies. But just know that our design is to be a fraternity, and our fraternity values and what we're really good at are these things. We in AGO can excel in these areas, and we have a specific target and a very specific things that we excel in, and we need to double down on these areas, because I can tell you right now, like, I love the crew leader Jeff, like here at San Diego State, but he cannot get on the level of like peer-to-peer accountability like AGO. Doesn't get any close. Having people knock out my door, be like, hey, what's going on? Like, no, they can't do that. He doesn't live here. Like, the leadership development that I got from being a president has far exceeded any workplace I've ever worked at. Like, having to do and run this fraternity 6 years ago, like, that was the best leadership experience I've ever gotten. Not even close. Like, yeah, you can lead a Bible study with crew with InterVarsity or at your local church, but there's nothing like taking ownership of AGO. Like, having to develop a pledge process or a rush plan, like, people, like, you guys don't understand how hard that actually is outside of AGO. And that is going to sharpen you so much. Here at State, and this is like the dream situation, is that because AGO is not a campus ministry, we can kind of exit the battle. Like, we can exit the battle of trying to recruit a bunch of Christians going to their Thursday night service, their Wednesday night service, their Saturday morning Bible study, blah, blah, blah. Because we're like, oh, hey, you know what? We're actually a fraternity. So we are all going to go to your things, and we're a fraternity. So, like, we're totally different, right? And what that actually means is we can actually spearhead unity, because we're not arguing. Like, we're not trying to steal your members. Like, we want you to be a fraternity brother because fraternities are different than being a part of a campus ministry. Like, you need to know that you can do both, and that should be the expectation of AGO members. But one of the things that's been super cool with the state chapter is I've told them, I said, guys, hey, we need to be friends with these campus ministries, because if we're not their friend, they're going to kill us. Like, and I say this because when I was a student, what was the best place to go get members? We all know this. You show up at all these new campus ministries, you show up for the first couple of weeks, you look at any cool looking dude and be like, "What's up, bro? Let me get your number. Let's hang out." Hey, what you doing, bro? Like, you want to get McDonald's? Oh, hey, dude, we have these cool events coming up next week. You should check it out. And then what happens is we get that guy. We never show up to that campus ministry, and then we have him build this reputation as poachers. Like, I don't want that to be the case. You know what's really cool is when there's a leader at a local campus ministry. It's like, hey, man, I've got this guy. I just met him. You should tell him to join AGO, because I think it's be super good for his development as a man, and he needs to get around brothers. I know you guys are doing something great. And that takes a long time to cultivate those relationships. But let me tell you, when you win over the crew director or the intervarsity director or the campus or the college pastor, it, like, you got to understand that that is going to help you not only for your present time in AGO, but for future generations, because they know that AGO develops quality men, and they know that we're not, hey, look, Jeff, not trying to steal your dudes. Like, we're really not. Like, we're really not. But we do need to grow this thing. Hey, dude, no problem. Like, I got some people here. Or, hey, they're not, like, hey, we're not, like, again, if we just become this thing, we're AGO for life, and we stop showing up to church and we stop showing up to our campus ministries, it does create a bad look on us for stealing people. But when we flip the stage and be the ones that host carry the love, and we get 6 different ministries coming up at our house, everyone's like, dude, AGO's sick. AGO can do this? Because crew can't do that. Like, crew, like, I mean, they can, but they're crew. Like, AGO can be, hey, all you guys, let's do a joint unity event. Let's do it. And I promise you, it may not get you members directly, but indirectly, you guys are going to win a lot of goodwill for people. And one of the things I told the guys that have houses is, if you go to the director and be like, hey, man, I know, we're a Christian fraternity here. We love the Lord. We just want to extend the invite. If you guys ever need to host like a worship night or a Bible study on a weekly basis, our doors are open. Use our chapter, use our house. Dude, watch them salivate. I'm not even kidding. Like, they love that. Absolutely love that. And that's why we'll talk about chapter outlets a little bit later. We can kill discipleship really well. Like, we can do so well in this, because it is like, you got really great guys all in the same area, and we're all running the same battle. Discipleship is incredible. I will never forget. I was thinking about leaving my church as a sophomore, and one of the guys that was older than me, he was like, "That's not biblical, dude." Like, or hey, you should really ask God, like, if you're just uncomfortable, or if you really feel like you're called to leave. And he's like, hey, and maybe you should just suck it up and go to Bible study. Like, I know you don't like it, but just, you got to suck it up and got to go. And ultimately, I was like, dude, you're so right. Like, you're so right. Like, I'm just getting uncomfortable, and I have a tendency to isolate when I feel uncomfortable. So it was just like, that was so powerful for me. Or, like, I'll never forget, like, a second year, I just felt so convicted of my purity life. And I was just like, guys, I've never shared this with anyone, but I have a problem. And every single guy was like, dude, we got you, bro. We got you. Hey, here's some resources. Let me block your computer. Give me your password, all of it in that week. And it was just so powerful. And that's kind of the blend of discipleship and peer-to-peer accountability. But we got that better than anyone. I'm not kidding. And we live that Acts 2 lifestyle. If you read Acts 2:42 through 47, I tell this to my West Coast guys, it's like an equation. Like, it literally is like an equation. If you read Acts 2:42 through 47, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the breaking of bread, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember it all. But then at the very end, it says, then the Lord added to their number daily those that are being saved. It's literally one of those like geometry like proofs. It's you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Then the Lord adds to your number daily. So again, if you really live that Acts 2 lifestyle, you guys will attract people. And if you don't have it right now, pretend. Like, like that's what I told you guys. I've had a chapter that had 2 members, literally a year ago. I told them that if you cannot show it now, you can sell it in the future. You can sell it on the vision because that's what this organization is supposed to be. It may not look like that now, but this is what it's supposed to be. And they 2x, so they got 4, and then they 2x again, so they're at 8. So it's like literally in 1 year, they were about like I remember having the call and talking to them in person. Hey guys, you guys got 2 members. Like, what are we gonna do here? like, and I was not believing. I was like, I don't want to fly here anymore. Like, whatever. But they were like, no, we believe in this. Like, we want to go with it because. And I asked him like, why do you even want to do this? Like, fraternities die all the time. He's like, it's what this fraternity represents. I was like, oh, Jesus, got me. Like, this fraternity represents something, and it represents longevity, and it represents a fire on campus. It is unique, and I can't think of many organizations that would be like, hey man, I've got 2 members, I got 3 members, I got 4, 5 members, and I still want to continue. There's not many at all, but there's something about AGO and what this organization represents that keeps people going for generation after generation after generation for almost 100 freaking years. Like, I don't understand it. I don't. Like, I'm a big old business guy, and you look at all the models of all the things that have happened, doesn't make sense other than God does not want this organization to die, and I believe that like with full conviction. Don't lose your uniqueness. Oh, okay. You ever had the struggle of convincing someone to join? It might be a lack of spiritual growth. So, guys, I'm going to go into this a little bit more, but sometimes you're recruiting people that are like way too good for you. Way too good for you. They're like, bro, like, dude, why are you like, oh, you're the Christian fraternity? Why is that guy dropping an F-bomb? Hey, you're a Christian fraternity, like, why are you kind of a D-bag? Hey, like, what's your scripture memory or like what's your daily Bible reading look like? What are your disciplines? If we're not like the solid house or the solid chapter, we're going to lose some people that would be great leaders within AGO. And like it totally makes sense. I remember, and AGO is not for everyone. I'll just say that openly, but there's nothing worse than there's a guy who's a perfect prospect, and he's like, "You guys aren't following Christ." Like, straight up, like, why would I join you? What's the value of me joining this organization? Like, I get that someplace else. In fact, I probably get it better, and that sucks. Like, we do not want that at all. Like, we're really missing if we have a bunch of lukewarm softies in our fraternity. And love it.
What?
Love it, or what do you say?
This is not bad.
No, you're good. Like you said, love it. I'm like, amen, bro. But seriously, guys, like, if we are not like like we are not spiritually strong, we're going to not grow, and we're actually lacking. Again, Alpha, Gamma, Omega, the knowledge and whole armor talks about how there's a gamma in the center because that means we are a Christ-centered organization, God-centered organization. If that is like just for marketing purposes, like, people see through that. Like, guys are smart. Like, they're not dumb. They're like, hey, yeah, like, you guys have a lot of fun. You guys have a Christian, you guys all wear crosses and whatnot. That's cool, but I don't think I'm going to grow there. And we need to be a place where guys are spiritually growing. And yeah, we have people that are messy and we work with them, but like, you got to be a place where you guys are growing, and if you guys aren't growing, there's a big problem, like a big problem, and presidents have to really spearhead that too. Um, yeah, if AGO is not spiritually potent, we will get pruned, no doubt, no question. Um, we need to understand our place within the body of Christ. We are a fraternity. Um, we need to be people that prioritize holiness and potency. Um, I've kind of shared a little bit what that means with some guys. But basically, salt of the world, or salt. We are the salt of the world. We need to be champions of unity amongst believers. We need to cultivate a culture of evangelism, prayer, and worship, and be the leaders in discipleship and peer-to-peer accountability. Um, if we're not this, we're not shooting for this, we're not going to get people. Like, I'll pull you for example. Like I mean, Noah's just a solid dude, and he like he didn't really need AGO. Kind of like you had your friends, like you had the church community, but I don't know. Like you said it yourself that you saw that AGO was doing something, and you're like, kind of want to be in the center of that, even though you didn't particularly need the community. You're like, oh, I want to be a part of it. And obviously, we're not perfect by any means. Like we're not perfect, but yeah, there was something there, right? I mean, you can maybe speak to it if you want, but
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like saw that God was moving a lot through this fraternity, and like I said, like the earlier, like they're, I think that they're doing like this chapter's doing a really good job of like teaming up with the ministries that I was talking about earlier, and focusing on like what it is, like being a fraternity, and then just kind of like equipping its members, like for example, like Asher and or Sunshine and Juke. I think they're both like really good examples of like being equipped by the people in this house and the people in the fraternity, and then like going out and taking that into the ministries that the parts of, you know. And I just thought that was really cool thing. And then to like the growth that I knew God wanted to like do in me through being a part of like a body like this, you know.
yeah, it's so good. Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about what I call the AGO prototypes of who we're targeting, but for one of the big things is that at every campus, no matter what, guys, I'll just call them like they're the superstars. Like they're the guys that like, oh, bro, you're gonna do some pretty big things in this world. And sometimes, for whatever reason, they end up joining AGO. Like I'm like, bro, why did you join AGO? And like, how on earth? And the thing is there'll be times when those people have the conviction to join AGO or whatever. But one thing I can tell you is that if we're faking it, like on our spiritual walks and our journeys, and we are not truly a Christ-centered fraternity, we're going to not be attractive to those people. And that sucks because, man, I remember it so many times when I was in AGO and I was like, dang it, different Zach, like join AGO. Like I play basketball with you all the time. Join AGO. He's like, nah, man, I got my stuff. I'm a nurse. Like I'm too busy. And I'm like, shut up, just join. Like it's like, no, like he's like, I just, and at the time, really, like our church community was really strong. Like and it honestly, like, um, there was a big difference of the people within our college ministry and AGO. And like, you stepped in the AGO world, you were kind of like, oh yeah, we're loose on language. We're not really walking in alignment with the Bible. Yeah, we're Christian, which, it just wasn't attractive to a guy that was like, no, in our college ministry, man, I'm actually getting it more. And I was like, dang it, it sucks. Like that, it really does suck. And this is something that's really hard to cultivate and change. But one of the best things about actually being smaller as an organization and even as a chapter is there's only a few of you. So it's like the Spider-Man meme, like, dude, like who's at fault here? Or like you guys can be the champions for this. And again, the organization of AGO is what it is, and people are going to believe in it or not. But if the reputation of AGO is a bunch of lukewarm, loose mouth Christians, not going to get people joining you, right? If we are a place that is like, hey man, the guys in AGO are something different. Like, and guys, I'm telling you, like, I didn't realize this until I worked for AGO. Skylar and Brandon can speak for this. We got some baller alumni. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, we got some guys that are sports newscasters. We've got people that are, Fortune 100 consultants. We've got millionaires, 100 millionaires. We've got doctors. We've got so many people in this world. I'm like, you joined AGO? Like, what the heck? Like, and it was because at the time it was like, hey, this is where you go if you're a Christian leader and a guy that wants to be surrounded and sharpened in their faith. I'm not saying that we still have that like within the more recent generations. But I'm telling you, like, there are some serious ballers in the AGO world, and I'm not joking. And it's because they were people that prioritize holiness and living a life of purity and being salt of the earth. Yeah. So here's some things that I really want to point out as points of emphasis for 2024, 2025. All that stuff is more, I guess, equipping on spiritual growth. But if you guys like take this page and circle it, like, I'm serious, because this is what we want coming up for this year, right? If you have questions on any of these things, we can take that offline. But one of the most important things that we need, and maybe your chapter doesn't struggle with this, but there are some that do. We need every member consistently attending a local church. Like, that is so important. Like, that is so, so, so important. And obviously there might be some situations where your school is rural and maybe it kind of sinks the local churches around. Don't get too religious on this. We need something outside of AGO with, most importantly, a pastoral cover. We need someone with more age, life experience. And obviously you have us, you do. But if you got a problem in Colorado, bro, the reality is I can't be there in a no moment's notice. Whereas a local campus minister can probably help out a little bit more. We need that, and we need those relationships, and we need to be committed, like, consistently. Like, that's, if you can highlight that word, consistency. Like, I do not want to be known as the organization that just shows up once a month and, like, no, like, we need to be the body of Christ. And that requires people showing up. Really, really, really want to implement Ironman, and it just sounds cool. I just think it's the coolest thing in the world.
What is Iron?
Great, all good. Ironman. So in one of the things that has been a thing within the whole armor and some of other standardization books is this concept of accountability groups. And the thing is what I was reading all these documents, and I'm like, why is this like 0.7 like on descriptions for the chaplain duties? And I'm like, no, like, accountability groups is like one of the most important things like about AGO. And like sometimes it'll happen casually, but we actually need to make it the priority of what we're doing for spiritual growth. Like, I'm not even, like, that is so important. So what Ironman is and what we're trying to build it out, and I need to finish my manual for it, but essentially is what we want is we want every chapter and within the chapter to have groups of 3 to 4 men as a what's called an Iron Man group. As iron sharpens iron, let one man sharpen another. So it's a group in which the chaplain will select a leader, and you guys will have almost like these consistent accountability conversations. So the leader that's appointed by the chaplain, because I know it's really hard to get people together, but the leader's sole job is to get 3 to 4 of you guys together. I don't care if it's at 6 a.m. in the morning at the gym. I don't care if it's at midnight while you're playing video games. I don't care if it's at noon at the student union. I want you guys meeting consistently at least once every 2 weeks and talking about the hard things. Like, it's so important for us to be spiritually sharpening each other. And it doesn't have to just be like, oh, how many times did you jack off this week? Like, oh, no. There's so much more into this. Hey, what's your relationship with God at right now? What's hard? Have you gone to church the past couple of weeks? Hey, like, what's going on with your family? Like, one of the biggest things that I realized within men's ministries, especially this generation, is that we've there's been a rampant increase of toxic masculinity. It's because there's was a rampant increase of femininity, and there was this like this battle of which guys didn't really know what it meant to be a man, and we still are figuring that out. And one of those things is that toxic masculinity said that we should never talk about our problems, we should never have feelings, and just be quiet. But the reality is if we don't talk about our stuff, your anxiety, your stress, and unfortunately, suicide is a very serious thing amongst men because they don't have a place to talk about things. The Ironman leaders are not pastors. They're just dudes that are committed to getting the group together to talk about the hard things. I want to emphasize that it's not like we're not coaching people. Like it's just, hey, like creating a space for it. So it's something we really, really, really want to emphasize for this upcoming year. I truly believe having these things is going to set us apart from other organizations because it's really, really hard to do that and manage that as a, let's say, a crew. Sorry, I'm using crew all the time. But it's pretty easy for a group of a fraternity in which you have a chaplain in place, and the chaplain's supposed to oversee these group leaders and make sure that they're happening. And the leaders are reporting, hey, so and so hasn't been showing up for a while. Let's check in on him and all this stuff. And the whole goal of this again is we want there to be iron sharpening iron conversations. And this is the first year we're really going to implement it, but from the people that have tried it out for the past semester, positive, very overwhelmingly positive things. Because again, guys, like we don't like sometimes you'll have a chaplain that is a PK and knows everything about conducting the most beautiful Bible study in the world and can really equip a chapter like that. The problem is that's not reproducible because that's again not what we're designed to be. So if we're so focused on making the chaplain and the spiritual growth of AGO our chapter devotionals, we're missing the point. Like what we are really good at is this peer-to-peer coaching and accountability. Again, we really want to implement the Big Bro Bible study. So in the whole armor, some of us have done this, some have not. This is the President Retreat, so we're kind of announcing some things and maybe have to explain it a little bit later. But in the whole armor, there used to be this thing called the Pledge Bible Study that was led by a local alumni. Now, back in the day, our pledge processes were 16 weeks long. So you could fit a 7-week Bible study within that. And, you can be a little bit delayed on finding an alumni to lead it and all these other things. But as we've grown to, having chapters on the East Coast and with less alumni presence, we find that it's pretty hard to find these alumni to come lead these things. And I'm not saying it's not a bad thing to do, but it wasn't scalable. So one of the things that we've implemented is the Big Bro Bible Study. So every big bro is also having these sharpening conversations with each of their little bros, but they're also taking them through the basics of Scripture because a healthy AGO is attracting strong believers, attracting lukewarm believers, but we're also attracting non-believers. And one of the coolest things I've seen in AGO is when a pledge class gets to baptize a pledge bro, because that is so fire. That's what we exist for. Like our first purpose of the fraternity is to win others to saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. And if we're not doing anything, we're just a holy huddle, what's the point? Like really, what's the point? And I think God will prune us for that. One of the things that has been it hasn't been very clear, so we have it has not been very clear, is AGO men need to submit to a code of conduct. So one of the things I've realized is that, having a theological belief is one thing, but adhering to standards of Christian living is another thing. And I think one of the things that all denominations could agree upon is that there are some things that Christians should do and they shouldn't do. And one of the things we have not been, admittedly, as an organization, we have not been good at communicating that amongst the brotherhood. So we will be ironing out and creating a new code of conduct for each of our chapters. What this is going to be, it's the basics. But the thing is, we need to write it down because you don't know. And some people don't know. If a guy got saved at a Rush event and has been to church all but 2 times and he knows Jesus as the guy from The Chosen, he doesn't know that he doesn't know that it's a sin to have premarital sex. He doesn't know that that there's standards of holiness. He doesn't know that alcohol is like, hey, you're not supposed to drink alcohol. You're not supposed to be drunk. Like sober minded living. And there needs to be grace, and there needs to be a lot of grace with these, because people are entering into this world with struggles, and I don't want this to be something that are like kicking people out of AGO or not. But we need to have something, and what we've realized is that we need to just have the code of conduct from national, so that we're not making you guys the bad guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a code of conduct, basically lining out all these things, and and it's basically a standards of holiness and the standards of Christian living. We're going to have every member sign it, so they're accountable. And if they're repeatedly out of this, we have grounds for removal. And what this will do is also protect you guys from situations, because there's been situations where I'll just be honest. Like, I'll just share an example. We had a chapter that took all of their entire pledge class to a strip club. That happens. That happens, guys. Guess what? It happens. Obviously, that we think that makes sense, right? We don't do that. But we didn't have it written down and very, very, very clear. So we obviously removed those members from the fraternity, but it just wasn't clear. And those types of things just happen. Like, they do. Like, there's been, guys, I had like one of the biggest reasons why I grew up so much within AGO, I'll get to, is because I had to have hard conversations. Like, I had to. And we want to limit like this denominational, like, oh, we believe this, we believe this. Like, it's like, hey, look, that's not what we're here for. Like, there's some pretty big picture issues that we can all agree on. Because again, when we are repping that we're the Christian fraternity, but then we got one dude hitting up all the sorority girls and trying to sleep with them, it's like, hey man, you are really tainting the name of what we represent. And that is not okay. And obviously we're working with people and we're growing people, but we need to be tough on that. Jude.
I have a few things. Is there an ETA on it?
It will be done before the fall semester. Yeah. This will be,
Will this replace statement of faith?
it will be a supplement to the statement of faith. The statement of faith, we need to discuss that with our board of directors.
Is it changing?
The statement of faith is not changing. The process of the statement of faith is not changing. However, one of the things that I want to implement is no longer a statement of faith, but we want an application to join AGO, and we want to just put those questions within the application, because it's kind of awkward to halfway through the process answer all these questions. So what I've had some chapters do is we have what's called an interest form. I'll go more in depth in later sessions, but it's the same exact thing. It's what's your name, what's your testimony, what are your beliefs on these things. And again, the history behind AGO, for you guys all to know, is that AGO was founded by people that left a seminary and went to UCLA. So a statement of faith, if you look at the process of it, is actually an application to seminary. It's a very, very thorough document for seminaries, because seminaries are denominationally specific. So you got to understand that that's where they were coming from in 1920. We haven't changed that. And some of us are like, I don't even know what hell is. Like, that's like one of the questions in there. Describe heaven and hell. And I mean, I know what I believe, but like, that's a question that's pretty next level for an 18-year-old, right? So right now, the statement of faith is not going to be taken away, but we're working on making it to where it's not as rigid in terms of implementation. Because really what we found is that, well, and again, our pledge process again used to be 16 weeks long, so we had a lot more buffer time to like handle these things. But a lot of our chapters are averaging about 6 to 8 weeks now. So it's like, oh hey, you submitted your statement of faith in week 4. Some of them are a little bit late. Big eyes next week, and you realize that this thing's all messed up, and you're like, well, can we even do anything about this? And like, and again, we are openly an interdenominational fraternity, so anyone who's a Christian and believes the core things, absolutely. Like, you just gotta know, like, you can be a part of AGO, but know that we're gonna lead the organization in these values. But we accept every denomination. Like, that's not something we're trying to isolate from. Like we are unity, like that's what we want to be. But like, we felt that the statement of faith was really attacking denominational issues, and we really need more standards of Christian living, and we will have those questions in the application. Questions? New member development. Again, if you are struggling to attract new members, it might be because you don't know how to attract and recruit and retain. And I'm going to go over this very quickly because we will talk about this tomorrow. And this is my recruitment and retention is my baby. Like I love this stuff. Like we're gonna go into it. The other two pillars are great for our identity and the success of an AGO operation and identity. Sorry, I repeated that. But without a solidified new development system, the longevity of the chapter will always be an issue. You guys can have the most spiritually potent guys in the world, and you guys can be this super awesome group of 12, 20, whatever size you are, and you guys are all living all these things. But the reality of AGO is you guys graduate in 2 to 4 years. And if you don't pass the baton, then you guys had a great time in AGO, but then the future generations will never get an opportunity to experience what you experience. And we have to have that big picture mindset of doing this. So we can be great in those two other pillars, but if we lose the priority of attracting new members every school period, we're going to die out quicker than we did. And another thing too, to speak on this, is I think a lot of the times we actually make this so important. And I've admittedly have done that as my fault. It is not about attracting new members. Like anyone can attract new members. Like it's not difficult. Like it's really not difficult. But attracting the right members for AGO, while upholding our other two pillars, that's incredibly important. But we have to know that this is this. So I'm going to breeze through all of this. We're going to talk about, or the new member development is how do we develop the next generation of AGO? You do that by having a solid recruitment and retention plan, a strong and meaningful pledge process. We're not eliminating the pledge process. I thought about that. I'm like, maybe if we just got rid of the pledge process, we'd get more members. Nope, that's not true at all, because the pledge process is actually something that is so unique to fraternities. And weirdly enough, some people are like, oh, I want to be a pledge. I'm like, what? And hey, there's something powerful within the pledge process if we do it correctly. And then we want to talk about empowering the next generation really quickly. I've spent a lot of time reading sales and business books. And I think I've finally gotten really close to getting the right wording and the right systems for how we can recruit better. And it all falls down upon these things. We must have a strong and compelling offer. We need to know how to attract and search for the right leads. We need to have the right lead magnets, and we need to perfect closing and managing the sale. And then in addition to that, you can recruit really well, but it doesn't matter if you don't retain them. One of the things I share with the Epsilon chapter and a lot of the West Coast guys is that my first time into AGO, we had just joined. We went from 6 to 12 in a year, and then we are all stoked and fired up on AGO. We were so fired up. I was tabling every single day. I was hitting up every person I know because I believed in what AGO was, and we had 11 pledges. So we were like double. Like it was, we were about to be over 20, and I share this all the time as a lesson because the person who was put in the pledge master position fumbled the ball. And I actually don't even know if he fumbled the ball. He shot the ball, pissed on the ball, and flipped off the ball, basically. Every single one of those pledges dropped after the first meeting. Every single one of them. And you have no idea how much anger that brought me, that brought people, because we put our blood, sweat, and tears into recruiting. And then one weekend, they lost the fire for wanting to join AGO and they dropped. How do we keep them? Because it doesn't matter how many people you attract during your recruitment period. It matters, can you keep the ones that come and stay. That's the most important part, because guess what? Recruitment is like, it's like the first date. You tell all the hot things. It's like dating, but the pledge process is like engagement, and then marriage is when they become actives. You can bow out from engagement and still not be in out of God's plan, but you want to get them to marriage. Like that is the thing, and we forget that we are still recruiting them while they're pledges. You're still reminding them that, hey, this thing that you thought it was, it still is that, but we're teaching you something, and you do that by, I'll go into it, but yeah, cultivating belonging. The offer, just so you guys can understand what I mean by this, and we'll go more in depth on it tomorrow. But the offer should be, the AGO should be so attractive as an organization that the prospects feel stupid for declining an invitation to join. AGO should be so good and should be communicated so well that you can, with conviction, look them in the face and be like, are you serious? You don't want to join? Like, you're an idiot. Like, I'm dead serious when I say that. And I can say that with conviction for people, because I believe in AGO that much. And I'm like, but can you look into the eye of a prospect and be like, hey, look, I know you're declining this, but like, it'd be pretty stupid of you, like, if you did, like, full disclosure. You have to overwhelm them with value. And we can do that easily with the value during rush, but the problem is we do have a cost. And if the cost outweighs the value, they drop every single time. That is as simple as it is. Leads. Our chapter should have a clear understanding of our target prospects. AGO is not for everyone, but it can be for a lot of people. We need to understand who we're targeting. Our lead magnets is what can we use to attract a lead? So think of holding a magnet. How can we get all these leads to come to us? Like, how can we do that? And how can we execute that? Our prospects should understand how to attract prospects by using lead magnets. Example of lead magnet is, again, anything that can attract a prospect to you. Your rush events, your rush flyer, your free offerings, food, Instagram page, etc. And the sale and close is strategic sales and offers to create and creative closing techniques. How can we get them to say yes and accept the bid? Like, how can we get them to be like, hey, dude, I know we had a great time at Topgolf, but like, do you actually want to join us? Like, how can we get them to this, and understanding that process and understanding follow-up and what I call the AGO funnel. It's really cool. It looks really good. Again, retention is how can we get them from a prospective new member to an active member? And we do this by closing the deal using psychology. Like, guys, it's actually super simple. Like, it's super simple if we just make some tweaks to our process and understand psychology. Because when someone comes to an event, guys, you got to understand, if they're coming to an event, they're interested. They are really interested. No one just walks into a free rush event because they're not interested. People aren't that dumb. Like, they really aren't. And, how can we get them from showing up to, a broom ball or ultimate frisbee or taco night, and how can we get them to stay? Because they were interested enough to show up to something, a very uncomfortable situation of an event where they don't know anyone, a fraternity. They were interested enough, but how can we get them there? And I'm kind of walking us through what the pledge process would look like. I actually think I need to add a couple of things in there. Yeah, boom. Oh, quick testimony. So again, I've shared the San Diego State story of my own personal story, also the when I first got hired. But I will shout out the Berkeley chapter. Couldn't make it this weekend, but these are the guys that I talked with a year ago, and they had 2 members. And I think I'm a cool dude. You guys laugh.
No.
I think I have some good ideas too. I have a track record of some pretty good success stories. I really do. I'm not trying to be boastful when I say that. But Berkeley chapter just didn't listen. Like, they just didn't. They were just like, great idea, Drift. Not gonna do it. I'm like, great. And I was like kind of happy when they got down to 2, because I was like, that's what you get. You didn't listen to me. Like, you didn't listen to me. And I was kind of like Jonah when like he's shared in Nineveh, and I'm like sitting on the tree. And I'm like, all right, God, destroy him. And he didn't, and I've learned that that's actually a bad thing, part of my personality. But I'll remember it was a year ago, like pretty much a year ago. and the two leaders. Again, if you guys don't know Cal Berkeley, it's right there with Stanford and Caltech is like the most intelligent people in the world. And these guys are like they are so intelligent, but then they were kind of missing like that like, hey, you gotta, follow this, right? Like you guys are so creative, you guys are so good at implementing your playbook, but if you just implemented my playbook, it might work out a little bit more. And again, I shared the story. Like I'm like, hey, your guys' charter has been around since World War II. Like, and if you don't know that, like your founding members of your charter served in World War II. There's not many World War II survivors alive today. Your charter's 70 years old. Most people die at 70. Like that's 72 is the age of men in US. And I'm like, sometimes things need to die. Like, you guys want to kill it off? And I was hoping that they would say yes. I told them this. But they were like, no, we believe in this thing. And I'm like, okay, if you believe in this thing, then you need to listen to what I say and we're going to go to work. And again, they put the things into practice and it wasn't perfect, but for whatever reason, again, God's sovereignty, and I just can't believe it. But they attracted 4 new guys, 4 freshmen that want like, and I went up there for their bid night. I said, hey guys, just so you know, these 2 guys are graduating. Like you guys are taking over the fraternity. Do you still want to do this? And every single one of them was like, absolutely. And I'm like, what? Like, are you serious? And they're the ones leading it now. And um, I'm super stoked. I'm super stoked for Berkeley. And I'm like, yeah. So Nico, when you listen to this, because I'm recording it for you, I'm stoked for you. But it's so possible, guys. It is so possible. Like, because again, you're selling a Christian fraternity. Like it's unique, it's different, it's possible. So yeah. Anyways, so the AGO pillars, you got all 3 of them, but then you have the building of the house. So you understand the operation of AGO. Our foundation is always going to be Jesus and Jesus Christ. Christ is our firm foundation, rock on which I stand. There's some rocks down there. Pretty cool, right? We need to have Jesus as our foundation. That is obvious. But there are some structural pillars that need to be put into place. That's where we have our fraternity identity, our commitment to spiritual growth, and our commitment to cultivating and getting new members. You have the bottom beam of the chapter and your uniqueness, but you have the top beam of us as national. And we are all Alpha Gamma Omega. That is the title on top of our building. And my goal, guys, is that when people see Alpha Gamma Omega, they see all of this. Like they understand that this is what we represent. And if we need to tweak things, we need to tweak things. But we succeed in building the house when all these things are in place. Boom. That's the end, guys. Cool. Do you guys have any questions we can talk about?
How do you increase fraternity-ness?
How do you increase fraternity-ness? So what are some things that are unique about a fraternity versus crew? Hazing, let's call it, you people have permission to challenge you. Like that's what a pledge process is. You say, hey, you know what, I'm giving you permission to challenge us. Like, so yeah, there's the pledging. I would just call it like, hey, this is like a good way to communicate it is, hey, you're committing to a spiritual sharpening program. You're committing to discipleship. You're committing to eventually leading this organization. We chose you as a prospect, not just because you showed up and we thought you were cool, but we chose you as a prospect because we see potential in you of not only joining, but hopefully leading this thing when I'm gone. Like that is important. So there's ownership, there's ownership in attracting something that they're going to lead. Like, trust me, guys, like, when you're working and you're sometimes attracting some Christians, like some people are really excited at the idea of being a part of a startup. Like everyone wants to be in the room with Mark Zuckerberg when they're building Facebook. Everyone does. Like AGO, if you're a smaller organization, treat it like a startup, guys. Like it's, oh, dude, yeah, dude, there's some great ideas. We got this going. Like there's some excitement about that, right? So there's that. The thing that I would say, and this is Skylar's session, but the thing that will always set a fraternity apart from another organization will, obviously that pledge process, but it'll be the commitment to doing events together. So you guys all pay dues, and like, please understand that those dues do not fund my salary. They do not. Like they don't even. They do. They may be covered the in and out for today. Like so, just know that how our organization is currently structured is that you guys are all putting money into a pool for you guys to do fun things. If you guys are not using that money to do fun things, what are you doing? Like, why are you paying money? Like, seriously. And that's the argument that people will say. Be like, oh yeah, man, Crew's doing a bonfire. Do a better one. Like, go buy fireworks with it, or like, go do a retreat. Like, seriously. Like, I had to tell a chapter. I'm like, stop giving away your money. Stop giving away your money and doing cheeseburgers. Go do something fun. Like I felt like blasphemous saying it, but I was like, your entire budget, 70% of your budget is going to buying hamburgers to pass out to people. That's a great thing to do if you are the church in Santa Barbara, where that's where they attract most of their congregation. But we're a fraternity. Like, go rent out an Airbnb. Like, one of my favorite memories within AGO, and it was kind of a big flex, was like we went and visited Colorado. Like we paid money to be a part of his organization, and we bought $79 Frontier airline flights. We all carried a backpack. We roughed it. All the guys at the time, Roe and Zai, picked us up, and we spent a weekend in Colorado. Like, Crew ain't doing that. I'm telling you that much. There was a time when we had so much money, and I was a treasurer. I was a pretty bad treasurer because we went over budget a lot. But I was like, we can make Disneyland work. Like, we can make Disneyland work out, and we comped. We said, hey, you know what, guys? Because we have this event where, again, guys, do events. Like, if your identity is just in your chapter meeting, that is so boring. Like, that is so boring. We have a mandated, and I'm so glad it's a culture piece that sucked, but we have Guy Retreat, which is a important thing. Every semester we are going on Guy Retreat. Like, that is, if we have to drive out to the desert and peel off the side of the road and do it for free, we'll do that. But if we have more people, we'll go to an Airbnb. We'll go to, you guys freaking went to Chicago. Like, you guys got a donation from one of the members, but they flew all the guys out to Chicago. Like, that was personally kind of sealed the deal for a lot of people. We have this thing called, like, it's called Guy Hangout. Like, that is incredibly important for us because no matter what, we know that there's a Friday within our semester where it is required for every man to attend, and we're going to do something fun. That's where we did Disneyland. So we were like, guys, we have $500. Okay, we have 15 members. Every guy can get $70 towards their Disneyland ticket. Buy it and we'll reimburse you. Like, we did that. Crew ain't doing that, guys. Like, that, do more fun things. Like, seriously. And when you're in this phase of really trying to restart or really figure out what AGO is, I'm going to talk about it in my next session, but you need to operate like a startup. Like, you need to, like, be agile, but you need to prioritize. You need to prioritize your organization. So, the thing I know about Facebook is they were focusing solely on building Facebook. Zuckerberg was not focused on these things. The movie, they got the Napster founder came in. They weren't working on Napster. They weren't focused on anything. Their sole focus was on growing Facebook. Like, when you're at this stage, truly, you're under 30 members, you need to be focused on how do I grow AGO and make AGO an attractive product. Whether you're 3, 22, or 29, like, it's all about adding and growing value to AGO. And please, 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 if you're spending money, do it for some fun things and figure it out.
So my problem that I'm looking at is what I call in-season retention among the members, because I've been getting complaints, and it's never, I don't think I've ever had someone tell me, man, dues is perfect amount. I hear guys like on the active side that's like, I'm paying $500, $600, and we just don't do that much. We pay a lot for food. We pay some of it. I know obviously goes to nationals, which it's not that much, but like goes to food. It then goes to nationals. It then goes to guy retreat, and it goes to formal. And then we have tiny bits and pieces. That's only like 4 things, and then the rest like goes to savings that I know of. And then there's people on exec that's saying we just don't have enough money to do stuff. It's like we should raise our dues, make it 1,000. I don't know. He's like, I want to do more stuff. I want to do more events. I want to do stuff that other fraternities are doing. Other fraternities are hosting parties. We don't have that advantage of being able to have numbers to host party. Other claims. So it's like, how do I keep the in season of getting more events and all that stuff when money's still a little bit tight in general, I guess. Like what would you say? Do you think $500 is perfect amount?
So again, AGO, we're very different. So I told Spidey this: stop looking at other fraternities. Like you got to stop looking at other fraternities because they're not even in our world. If you guys want some newsflash, you know how much other fraternities charge?
1,700.
Yeah. What? 1,700, $2,000 a semester. That's true. So get over it. $100 is nothing. However, you only are working with a quarter of the budget. So you got to understand that. And guys, let's be real. Like other fraternities, they're spending half of that on alcohol and drugs. Like it's so cut that out. We're kind of doing well. And they're doing a lot more flashy things to really promote what we're not trying to promote, right? Again, I'm going to say it comes down to priorities. So one of the things that is important is like you have to prioritize what you're spending your money to. There's always going to be this balance of should we invest more in the actives or should we invest more in Rush so getting more members? And like you just kind of you make those decisions. But one thing I can say is the earlier you make those decisions, the earlier you make those commitments, the better. But also, like if you hand out favors to people too often, that's when that bank account starts to shrink a little bit more. Or when that one guy who's like just he's not paying dues all the time, like that's where it's like, hey man, you're not paying dues. Like all the guys chipped in for this Airbnb through paying dues. Like that's where you have those conversations about, hey, you probably should be on social probation. Like that's a serious thing that we used to do. Again, we're so focused on getting members, we just want to get people at things. But like as you grow, it's an honor thing. And obviously, guys are going to have financial hardships, and we're going to work with that. But you have to budget well. Scott will talk about this, but you have to know how much money is coming into the bank, and you need to know how much that money is, and you need to make sure that you're collecting it. And I always like a strategy I had with coaching people and chapters was you set your budget based off of your actives and how many you know, but all the extra stuff is the pledges, like the pledge dues. So pledges are supposed to pay dues. In fact, at other fraternities, they actually pay 1.5% more than the actives. So $2,000 for let's just say Sig Ep, they're paying $3,000 to join. We don't like that's not how we operate. I'm not saying we should operate like that, but you got to understand that people normally charge pledges more, and we kind of do. We used to. We need to get back to it, but again, we're never going to be this organization that is going to require that. Like that's really going to like it's going to de-incentivize people joining. I always think, and I think this is a great bare minimum. I think you can do a lot when you charge $100. I think you really can, and you're going to be able to do what you think, or really what AGO is supposed to be. And again, if you charge low, then it's all about how can we get more guys, and you can do more things, all that kind of stuff. But I think $100 pre-tax, like, is what I would say. Taxes, national dues, which is $20 a month. Like, get over it. That is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Barely pays for, again, the hamburgers. Like, it does not go to us, right? But yeah, so to answer your like,
Yeah.
no one's ever. You're right. No one's ever gonna be like, oh, we got more money or whatever.
Sim,
It's not done. Dude, you hopping in, dude?
What is this?
This is President's Retreat, dude. Maybe maybe later.
So, bro.
Here, well, we're kind of doing some Q&A right now, but we're gonna do our next session. But if you want to sit in, absolutely, I'd love to have you in. But yeah, you're right. No one's ever gonna be like, dude, like you're right. Let's increase the dues, right? That's always like it's hard, and I mean, like if you guys like expand it out upon like a government, like of course, like that's always like the battle. Like, I don't want more taxes. I don't want it. But then you're like, oh, but these taxes are going to fund the children's hospital. Okay, I don't want to be against the children's hospital. Like, I'm not saying like you need to like sell this, but again, if you have a track record of like, hey, look, we're raising dues, one to combat inflation, because guess what? The dues that you're paying is the same dues I was paying, and inflation is incredibly increased. Like, so you have to adjust that. But I think a good bare minimum to charge is $100 a month, or even like 500 a quarter or semester. You can do a lot of cool things there, but again, you are not going to be able to do the rent out a rent out SeaWorld like another organization does. You're not going to be able to rent out a cruise ship for your bid night. You can't do that. But again, we're trying to also attract men like of non-financial means too. So again, $100 is a lot to some people, but it's really not a lot compared to other fraternities. And that again, if you want to create another sector within the market, we're the cheap fraternity. Like you can join us and get the benefits, the big benefits of brotherhood, leadership development, and for AGO, spiritual development. Like you can get that for this much, right? So, and another thing, I mean, something we haven't done incredibly well, but like AGO, like fraternities do fundraisers all the time. Like something you guys can do and build into your events is fundraisers. Like that's a huge thing. I'm actually like, yeah, I've been trying to get a golf tournament fundraiser going for the past couple of years. Just haven't really thought about it, but you know, there's ways to make money, and you can think about it. You guys talk about it all the time how when you guys founded, you guys sold Chipotle, like you guys
Yeah,
do
we
all
did,
these fundraisers.
Yeah, we did Chipotle,
Rush shirts.
and then we did rush shirts too. We had a rush shirt design that everyone loved, so we sold it to all the other chapters and gave us $30 off of it.
Yeah, there's creative ways to do it.
Yeah, I think one of the issues, like even like the increase in nationals was like a big thing for us because like our dues are very cheap. Our dues are not over 200, and the people we have are not that well off. So it's sort of like we need that money to then get these events going to provide more value, but the increase in charge is hard on people.
Again, so think of a startup like you know you minimize costs at the beginning. You know, you get social network, they were working out of their house, like, and then when they got that initial increase of funding, then they got the super sexy Facebook building. Like it was, you know, there's times when you need to operate out of your mom's basement, but then at some point you do need to grow up and you do need to do this. Now, this is just a general business thing, but again, like this is just a suggestion. Like we're not suggesting any changes here, but the one thing that you guys need to know is that you need to have a growth mindset versus a scarcity mindset. Not how cheap can we do it? It's what can we do if we had more, or can we make this happen if we had more? Now, the thing is yeah. Again, if dues were $25, there's some people that are gonna be like, that's too much. It's too much, not worth it. And again, it's that cost and benefit equation. Like, is AGO like you want AGO to be the value deal? Like you want it to be amazing. You want it to be the thing that says, hey, like this is I pay $100 or $120 a month for this, but I'm getting relationships that last a lifetime. Like how much money can you come? Or I'm getting to do some really great things and living together with these guys whatever, right? Now, to speak specifically to your situation and many of the situations here, and I'll just acknowledge it, like AGO was such a great deal for me in college because I also did have the chapter house. Like I don't want to, I do not want to like say that like to be insensitive to that. I was able to like totally say AGO was a great deal because when we filled this house out, I was paying, again, this is years ago, I was paying $400 a month for rent. Like I lived in a triple, I lived in a triple, and there was no space and our air conditioning didn't work. But I it was such a great deal in comparison to the dorms. So it was a major win for my parents. They were like, if you don't join AGO, we're gonna kill you. Like, they're like, you're gonna have to take out student loans for this. So again, we'll talk more in specifics on that issue on that in the future. But again, when you add more intrinsic value to what AGO represents, the cost doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Now, obviously there's the practicals of it, but if you're always looking about how you can make it cheaper, you're gonna have a crappier product. Like that's just how it is. Like the reason I used to work in the automobile industry. Um, Ford has a horrible reputation when it comes to quality. They have a horrible reputation when it comes to quality comparative to Honda or Acura or the Japanese made companies. The biggest reason is because America pays the employees more. They have labor unions, they pay the employees more. Japan doesn't. They don't. They can pay them less, which is why a lot of times companies will create factories out of country. Again, economics, business major. In order for Ford to make the F-150 not $100,000, which it actually already is, they need to sacrifice on their quality of their parts. So that's why they have plastic parts in some areas. Like there's other cars where they are marketing, we are the nicest, we have the best parts. You're not going to mess up with us. Volvo is known for having the second hardest metal in the world built into its joints. Volvos are not cheap. Again, they prioritize. We have a more valuable product. The cost is therefore that much. Ford has made the business decision of, in order for us to maintain the same exact cost for our people, we have to shrink the value. Again, you can have a low value product, but if the cost is more than that, it's a horrible deal. It's always going to be. The example I give the guys is, if you go to 7-Eleven over there and you see a Snickers bar is $3, you're like, okay, cool, $3. Or if you're from Texas, you're like, screw that, no way, it's $1 where I'm from. Like that's why a lot of people hate California. Like it's but for us, it's like we're kind of used to it. You go to the airport and you see the Snickers is $7, you're like, heck no, I'm not going to do that. But you know what? Some people still buy it for $7. Why? Because for them, the value of having that Snickers bar on their plane flight is incalculable for money. Or they are so hungry and they're starving that they'll pay $7 for this. Or even more so, like imagine you just spent a month in the Amazon, no food, no nothing. You would probably pay $100 for that Snickers bar. Like Bear Grylls when he's out doing his thing, again, that for them, the cost doesn't matter because the value is so important. But if you're stepping into and you go to 7-Eleven down the street and you're like, $20 for a Snickers bar? Absolutely not. That is what it is. So AGO, we always need to be, and as presidents, we need to always be monitoring what value we truly giving and does the cost match that. Now, again, the cost doesn't just mean the actual dollar amount. The cost can be how difficult is our pledge process. The cost can be how often am I showing up to all these events and in trade of my time, and that's where we have to be constantly balancing that equation in our mind. And it's not cookie cutter how you explain it, but yeah, I would always recommend I would always recommend having $100 as a bare minimum because you can do a lot with that. If you go below that, it really does limit what you can do. And there are chapters that have, and really just so you all know, our philosophy is, really where we're at right now as an organization is, hey, you all pay your national dues. Anything which you charge is what your chapter is going to be able to benefit from. There's some chapters where they do charge, like Alpha charges a lot. Like Alpha, I think Alpha charges the most out of all of the chapters, but they also do a lot. And I'm like, make sure you do that, or make sure you do that. So again, those are more like one-off questions. Talk to Brandon on suggestions, but that would be my blanket recommendation. Okay, I want to break this right now. So let's take 15 minutes, and then just so you guys all know, we're gonna go to the beach. We're gonna go do a hike. So get dressed for a pretty moderate or pretty easy hike, and then we're gonna do our goal setting there. So take a break for about 15 minutes, and then come back here and circle back. I'll send you the link, or we can keep it here. Cool. Oh, I'm talking to you, Joe. I'm realizing. Looking good.
The car.
I didn't know what
Yeah,
I
I think
wanted.
like, listen to what it is.